Chapter 967. All the sounds in the world seemed to have been sucked away. Everyone opened their mouths silently, but no sound came out. It was as if a pair of invisible hands had grabbed their throats, preventing them from making a sound. Prince Mo-Jie, one of the 7 minor theurches, had been pierced through by the god's weeping halberd. He had been nailed to death on War God Mountain. The impact and shock made many people's hearts churn, and they couldn't come back to their senses for a long time. Everyone's gazes once again fell upon the white-haired man in snow-white robes. Could it be that he was confident that he could kill Prince Mo-Jie? Is that why he was so calm? Many people felt a chill in their hearts when they thought of this. It was as if a basin of cold water had been poured down their spines. This man was too powerful and too terrifying. He had nailed Prince Mo-Jie to death on War God Mountain with a halberd. Who could be so domineering and bold? Jun Xiaoyaro looked indifferent. As early as when Prince Mo-Jie issued the challenge, his fate had already been decided. It was Prince Mo-Jie's fault for running into the muzzle of the gun. Jun Xiaoyaro needed to make a big scene. And if the 7 minor theurches of the foreign domain grew up, they would definitely be a disaster for the deity region in the future. Jun Xiaoyaro could kill one of them in advance. It was also a gain for him. Jun Xiaoyaro walked in front of Prince Mo-Jie. Many bloodlines appeared on the body of the god's weeping halberd and pierced into Prince Mo-Jie's dead body, sucking his essence dry. Jun Xiaoyaro slowly pulled out the god's weeping halberd. It shook slightly. Blood and flesh scattered. Jun Xiaoyaro stood on the top of War God Mountain and looked around. Prince Bian, Li Jiui, Piyu Yarrow and the others lowered their heads slightly, not daring to look at Jun Xiaoyaro. The other disciples of War God Academy also lowered their heads. As for Tushan Wanwan, Tushan Chun-Chun and Su Hongyi, their eyes were bright and filled with admiration. Looking at Jun Xiaoyaro, who could suppress everyone with his gaze, Mu Laro also sighed deeply. The chaotic body had just formed. I'll give anyone the right to challenge me, but I can't guarantee your lives. Jun Xiaoyao's voice was faint, but it spread throughout the vast expanse of heaven and earth. When everyone heard this, they were first shocked, then they gasped in awe. The foreign side worshipped the strong, martial strength was supreme. Jun Xiaoyao's performance had undoubtedly won over everyone present. One could well imagine that after this battle, Jun Xiaoyao's reputation would reach the peak of the foreign side. Even the other 7 minor emperors would pale in comparison to Jun Xiaoyao. If they were to find out that the person they worshipped was actually someone from the immortal realms, they would definitely be shocked. At that time, it would definitely topple the 3 views of all foreign creatures. Of course, that was a story for another day. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyaro held the god's weeping halberd in his hand. His white hair danced in the wind, and his temperament was peerless. He did not relax in the slightest because he knew that things were not over yet. Prince Mo-Jie had misjudged his strength and the power of the god's weeping halberd. That was why he had died in vain. However, it was clear that the Mo-Jie imperial clan behind him would not give up. Little friend is still too impulsive. Elder Mu frowned deeply. Jun Xiaoyao's performance was shocking. However, his actions were a little impulsive. Rumble. Heaven and earth shook, and the wind and clouds suddenly changed. Unparalleled killing intent surged. That was the anger of the Mo-Jie imperial clan's great figures. They also did not expect that their prince would be instantly killed in one move. Because it was too sudden, they did not even have time to prepare. Brat, you're courting death. In the endless void, a blurry figure appeared, emitting a quasi-immortal aura. It was terrifying beyond compare. That was a quasi-immortal from the Mo-Jie imperial clan. He was projected in the void, emitting a monstrous anger. Who would have thought that the battle on War God Mountain would cause Prince Mo-Jie to lose his life? A large hand pressed down, and endless runes fell down like a waterfall, crushing the void and messing up space. The anger of a quasi-immortal shook heaven and earth. Sir, please wait. This is War God Academy. Elder Mu's eyelids twitched as he exclaimed. Although Jun Xiaoyaro killed Prince Mo-Jie, he had a chaotic body and was a quasi-war god conferred by War God Academy. Not to mention now, Jun Xiaoyao even pulled out the god's tear battle halberd. He could be said to be the successor of the first-generation war god. If he was killed by the quasi-immortal of the Morgia imperial clan, the loss would be immeasurable. Facing the pressure of a quasi-immortal, Zhang Xiaoyao's white hair fluttered, and his white robe fluttered. With the god's tear battle halberd in his hand, his expression was as calm as water. The reason why Zhang Xiaoyao was so decisive and killed Prince Mo Jie was because, other than being one of the 7 little emperors, there was another reason. It was because Zhang Xiaoyao was gambling. He was gambling on how Luo Xiangling would react. Would he be willing to support him and fight for him? Rumble. The quasi-immortal's hand of law pressed down. At this moment, billions of runes surged out from the void like a tidal wave and collided with the hand of the laws. The quasi-immortal of the Morgia imperial clan snorted. A pitilessly beautiful figure appeared in the sky. She wore a plain gauze overcoat and a smoky long skirt. Her clothes fluttered, and her long blue hair fluttered in the wind. Her exquisite and beautiful facial features were a work of art. Her snow-white skin was as gentle as mutton-fat jade. She was tall, with a slim waist. Her beautiful legs were straight and slender under her skirt. She looked like the goddess of Luo, the goddess of river and Luo. Light rain swirled around her, accentuating her beauty. All the male skyprides were stunned. It's King Luo. Is this King Luo? She's too beautiful. Many people exclaimed in shock. They were all stunned. Not to mention the male skyprides, even the female skyprides couldn't help but be stunned. For many people, this was the first time they saw Luo Xiangling. After all, she was famous for keeping a low profile and rarely walked out of the purple bamboo forest. Seeing Luo Xiangling come, Elder Mu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At least Luo Xiangling wouldn't watch Zhang Xiaoyao get into trouble. After all, their relationship. King Luo, what's the meaning of this? In the void, the quasi-immortal projection of the Morgia monarch clan asked coldly. Luo Xiangling's eyes were sparkling, but it was only limited to when she looked at Zhang Xiaoyao. At this moment, she raised her head. Her swan-like snow-white neck was like jade. Her eyes were like a biting cold wind. Xiaoyao is under my protection. Her voice was like a clear waterfall, but her words were more domineering than a man's. All the living beings around War God Mountain widened their eyes. Their mouths were opened so wide that an egg could be stuffed in. Luo Xiangling usually interacted with Zhang Xiaoyao and didn't put on the airs of an expert. However, if she was serious, she would be a true queen, a strong woman. Why do I feel a little envious? Some skyprides said sourly. With King Luo's protection, what's the point of cultivating? Lord King Luo, I don't want to work hard either. He felt many envious gazes fall on him. Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes had a hint of relief. It seemed that his strategy during this period of time was still useful. Not to mention Luo Xiangling's feelings for him. At least, even when facing a quasi-immortal from the monarch clan, Luo Xiangling would stand up for him. That was enough. Chapter 968. Luo King, are you really going to become enemies with my Morgia imperial clan for this child? Seeing Luo Xiangling standing in front of Zhang Xiaoyao. In the void, the Morgia imperial clan's quasi-immortal said coldly. Luo Xiangling was not an ordinary person. Among the quasi-immortals, she was extremely strong. Not to mention, she was an ancient supreme of Ars Academy. Even the Morgia imperial clan could not bully her. Everyone's gaze fell on Luo Xiangling. After all, Luo Xiangling was going to offend an entire immortal emperor clan for Zhang Xiaoyao. This was no small matter. Even if Luo Xiangling had the backing of Ars Academy, offending an entire immortal emperor clan was not a good thing. Will Luo King offend the Morgia imperial clan for a primal chaos body? Many people were curious. Not everyone had the courage to fight the emperor clans head-on. At this moment, a calm voice sounded. Everyone, there's no need to make things so tense. As the voice sounded, a middle-aged man dressed in green and gold robes with green wings appeared. His quasi-immortal aura spread out. It was Fufeng of Gojosian. Another quasi-immortal from Ars Academy. Many of the Ars Academy's disciples were excited. Who would have thought that the battle between the primal chaos body and Prince Mojie would attract the appearance of three quasi-immortals? Seeing Fufeng of Gojosian appear, the quasi-immortal from Mojie imperial clan's expression turned even colder. He was only a projection. He could not even deal with Luo King, let alone Fufeng of Gojosian. However, to everyone's surprise, Fufeng of Gojosian looked at Luo King with a smile. Luo King, I feel that the Mojie imperial clan is in the right. Why don't we temporarily hand over the primal chaos body to them? Fufeng of Gojosian's words caused everyone to fall silent. Many people thought that Fufeng of Gojosian had appeared to stand on Luo King's side and support the primal chaos body. Who would have thought that they would come to undermine him? Fufeng of Gojosian, you, in Luo Xiangling's eyes, a biting cold wind and snow was surging. She had underestimated the narrow-mindedness of Fufeng of Gojosian. As for Jun Xiaoyao, a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Fufeng of Gojosian had already been recorded in his death notebook. In the future, he would suffer. Luo King, it was indeed the chaos body's fault. Who told him to kill Prince Mojie? Our Ars Academy should be reasonable. Fufeng of Gojosian was still smiling. But this smile made Luo Xiangling's beautiful face even colder. Can you represent the Ars Academy? Luo Xiangling declined to comment. Fufeng of Gojosian's face stiffened as he looked at Jun Xiaoyao. Xiaoyao, do you really want the Luo King to offend the immortal emperors for you? Back then, it was because the Luo King recognized you that you were able to become a quasi-war god. Now, you want to implicate the Luo King. Where is your conscience? Fufeng of Gojosian's words were sarcastic. Many people in the surroundings felt that something was amiss. Fufeng of Gojosian seemed to have a special enmity towards Jun Xiaoyao. Sigh. Elder Mu sighed deeply. He understood why Fufeng of Gojosian was targeting Jun Xiaoyao. After all, Fufeng of Gojosian was an old bootlicker of the Luo King. It was normal for him to be hostile towards Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao's expression did not change. But he could not help but admire that quasi-immortal emperors were all sly old foxes. There was nothing wrong with Fufeng of Gojosian's words. If it was someone else, they might have been speechless and unable to refute. But Jun Xiaoyao could beat them at their own game. He could use Fufeng of Gojosian's momentum to show off in front of Luo Xiangling. Moreover, he still had one last trick up his sleeve. This was something that Fufeng of Gojosian would never have expected. Let's see who will be the one slapping whose face in the end. Jun Xiaoyao sneered in his heart. On the surface, Jun Xiaoyao sighed softly. He walked forward slowly, stretched out his hand, and grabbed Luo Xiangling's jade-like hand. Xiangling, Senior Fufeng of Gojosian is right. I will bear the consequences of my own actions. Let me bear the consequences of my own actions. This scene caused the atmosphere to freeze. It was not because Jun Xiaoyao's words were shocking. It was because he addressed Luo Xiangling so intimately. And he even held Luo Xiangling's jade-like hand. Luo Xiangling's hand was soft as if boneless. Her skin was delicate, and her fingers were long and slender. It was so delicate that it was like a work of art. And this hand that had never been held by anyone before was now held by Jun Xiaoyao. Xiaoyao, you. Luo Xiangling's heart skipped a beat. Her delicate body actually stiffened a little. This was Luo Xiangling's first time being held by someone else. Even a quasi-immortal emperor who was high above felt a little confused at this moment. After all, Luo Xiangling was a beautiful old lady who had been single for tens of thousands of years. She had never had such contact with anyone of the opposite sex. Although she had spent some time with Jun Xiaoyao before, it was very appropriate and they did not have any contact. Fufeng of Gojosian saw this scene and almost exploded. Even as a quasi-immortal emperor, he could not calm down. His mental state was about to break. He loved Luo Wang and pursued her for a long time. But forget about touching Luo Xiangling, he had never even been within 3 feet of Luo Xiangling. In the end, Jun Xiaoyao actually took the opportunity to hold Luo Xiangling's hand. And the way he addressed her was so intimate. This made Fufeng of Gojosian's face turn green. He took a deep breath and controlled his emotions. He could not lose his composure. Xiao Yao, Fufeng of Gojosian, was simply a victim of his own cleverness. He was checkmated by Jun Xiao Yao. Xiao Yao, I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you. Luo Xiangling did not break free from Jun Xiaoyao's hand. Xiangling, leave it to me. How can a man stand behind a woman? In the future, if Xiao Yao grows into a peerless warrior, he still wants to protect Xiangling. Jun Xiaoyao smiled, looking dashing and handsome. Luo Xiangling's heart skipped a beat. Logically speaking, a quasi-immortal emperor should be able to control his emotions freely. But Luo Xiangling's snow-white face still turned red involuntarily. Everyone who saw this scene was dumbfounded. Damn, he was too good at flirting. So handsome. Boo-hoo, I'm so envious of Luo Wang. Many women were jealous. As for the men, they sighed. If I had 1/10 of the chaotic body's EQ, would I still be single? Tushan Wanwan, Tushan Chun Chun, and the other women saw this and were jealous. They also wanted to be held by Jun Xiaoyao like this. Jun Xiaoyao pulled Luo Xiangling behind him. He was facing the Mo Jie Imperial Clan quasi-immortal expert in the sky. Looks like you're still responsible. The quasi-immortal emperor Mo Jie said coldly. I wonder if the quasi-immortal level master of the Morjia Imperial Clan would dare to make a bet with me? Jun Xiaoyao asked with a smile. What? The quasi-immortal emperor Mo Jie said coldly. Jun Xiaoyao was less than an ant in front of him. He was not afraid that Jun Xiaoyao would play any tricks. I'm willing to take one move from you. After one move, life and death is up to fate. Jun Xiaoyao's words were deafening, resounding between heaven and earth. Chapter 969. Everyone was dumbfounded. A pseudo-supreme was going to take a pseudo-undying's attack. What was the difference between this and death? Xiaoyao, don't. Luo Xiangling was also slightly pale. As a pseudo-undying, she understood what this realm represented and what kind of power it had. It could be said that even Chaos Dao Master was not qualified to say such words in front of a pseudo-undying. As for Jun Xiaoyao, he was just a pseudo-supreme. Not to mention one attack. A pseudo-undying could kill a pseudo-supreme countless times with a breath. Jun Xiaoyao's action was even more ridiculous than hitting a rock with an egg. What a joke! Fufeng of Gojosian muttered, his eyes revealing a cold sneer. He was also a pseudo-undying, so he naturally understood how stupid Jun Xiaoyao's challenge was. Oh! Even the pseudo-undying of the Mo Jie family was surprised. He did not understand how Jun Xiaoyao had the guts to say such words. Your confidence comes from the mysterious undying behind you. The pseudo-undying of the Mo Jie family said coldly. Everyone knew that there seemed to be a mysterious undying behind the chaos body. If it wasn't for that undying, the other undying imperial clans would have already set their eyes on the chaos body. This bet only concerns the two of us, nothing else, Jun Xiaoyao said indifferently. Okay. The pseudo-undying of the Mo Jie family was also very straightforward, without any hesitation. Jun Xiaoyao's carefree and straightforward manner actually made him admire him a little. However, since Jun Xiaoyao had killed Prince Mo Jie, there was no possibility of reconciliation between him and the Mo Jie family. Rumble. The pseudo-undying of the Mo Jie family directly stretched out a palm. Although this pseudo-undying was only a projection right now, the power of his technique was enough to destroy the heavens and earth. 5 fingers, like pillars supporting the heavens, seemed to encompass the sun, moon, and stars. This was a top-tier great technique of the Mo Jie family, heaven-covering hand. When executed by an expert, it was said to be able to overturn the heavens, encompassing everything within the palm of one's hand. The void was unable to bear the burden, and cracking sounds could be heard as it collapsed inch by inch. The entire War God Mountain was shaking as runes appeared and circulated. This was enough to show how powerful this move was. As for Jun Xiaoyao, his white robes fluttered in the wind. Holding the god's weeping halberd in one hand, his white hair danced in the air. His temperament was peerless, as if a white-robed divine king had descended into the world. Whoosh! Jun Xiaoyao slashed out with the god's tear halberd. He slashed towards the gigantic palm that could overturn the heavens. He was like the great sage of the demon race who rebelled against the Buddha in the legends. Xiao Yao. Young master, sir. Luo Xiangling, Tushan Wanwan, Tushan Chun Chun, Su Hongyi, and Fei Qingxue were startled. Prince Bian, Li Jiuyi, Pu Yaro, and the other heavenly king stage geniuses were also staring fixedly. Jun Xiaoyaro could be said to be their nightmare. If this nightmare ended today, it would naturally be the best result. Is there any suspense? Fufeng of Gojosian saw this and shook his head slightly. A quasi-supreme fighting a quasi-immortal level was even more laughable than a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Tens of thousands of gazes gathered, and the heavens and earth went silent. Bang! It was accompanied by a dull sound. Jun Xiaoyao's entire body was caught by the gigantic palm and wrapped within it. Xiaoyao. Luo Xiangling's beautiful face was pale, and she couldn't help but want to attack. Luo King, this is his own choice. Fufeng of Gojosian blocked it at the right time. Tushan Wanwan and the other girls were also pale. Elder Mu's hand was also tightly clenched. Now that Jun Xiaoyaro had pulled out the God's Tear halberd, to a certain extent, he could be considered a member of Ars Academy. This was because the Ars Academy was founded by the first god of war. Chaos body. It's a supreme honor to die in my hands, the quasi-immortal level Morgia Emperor said lightly. However, the quasi-immortal level Morgia Emperor clan suddenly felt that something was wrong. Rumble. Above the sky, dark clouds pressed down, and layers of clouds rolled. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and incomparably thick thunderbolts roared like angry dragons. Amidst the turmoil of the heavens and earth, a huge dark hexagram mark appeared above the sky of the foreign territory. The dark hexagram slowly rotated, bringing with it an ancient, mysterious, dark, vast, and domineering aura. This is, the tens of thousands of foreign creatures present all widened their eyes, and their thoughts were somewhat stagnant. Most of the foreign creatures present had high statuses. Naturally, they knew about the legend of the world destruction 6 kings. And a while ago, a dark hexagram mark also appeared in the sky. What this scene represented, all of the other side's creatures were well aware of. The dark sequence. The world destruction 6 kings. Only the apocalyptic 6 kings, who could bring calamity to the immortal realms, could manifest the dark hexagram mark. Could it be that the chaos body is one of the dark sequence, one of the world destruction 6 kings? The brains of the foreign creatures present were somewhat short-circuited, unable to imagine. The chaos body itself was already legendary enough. Ever since it appeared in the world, it had never tasted defeat. And he even pulled out the first-generation war god's weeping war halberd. But now, he was actually one of the dark sequence, one of the world destruction 6 kings. This was too dreamy, a little unbelievable. Mr. is actually one of the world destruction 6 kings? Tushan Chuanchuan's eyes widened, and she was also very surprised. Suddenly, she remembered the first time she saw Jun Xiaoyaro. It was indeed in the heavenly tomb. Jun Xiaoyaro also said that he came from the heavenly tomb. With such a mysterious origin, it was reasonable to say that he was one of the world destruction 6 kings. I understand, no wonder Mr. came from the heavenly tomb, he is actually a sleeping dark sequence, one of the world destruction 6 kings. Tushan Chuanchuan's eyes lit up. What did you say? Tushan Wnwan was also shocked. She didn't expect Jun Xiaoyao's origin to be so mysterious. Boom. Just as everyone was stunned by the dark hexagram phenomenon, a voice suddenly rang out. The giant palm that covered the sky suddenly trembled. Then, thousands of black lights tore out and pierced through the giant palm, accompanied by an earth-shattering boom. A white-clothed, white-haired figure with a halberd in his hand appeared again. Behind Jun Xiaoyaro, a blurry figure could be vaguely seen. He also held the god's weeping war halberd in his hand and stood above the sky, emitting an incomparably domineering aura. It was as if all the worlds in the heavens were under his feet. The first-generation war god. Elder Mu shouted loudly and bowed 90 degrees to Jun Xiaoyaro. It's the first-generation war god. Greetings, war god. In all directions, endless uproars surged like raging waves. The first-generation war god could be said to be a symbol of Ars Academy, a belief, No one could slander the first-generation war god. How is this possible? This child is actually one of the world destruction 6 kings. Even the quasi-immortal from the Morgier imperial clan was shocked. If it was just a chaotic body and a quasi-war god, the Morgier imperial clan would have the right to punish him. But now, on Zhun Xiaoyao's wrist, the dark hexagram mark emitted a hazy black light, revealing his identity as one of the world destruction 6 kings. In addition, the first-generation war god phantom in the god's weeping war halberd was activated, blocking the power of his heaven-covering hand. Now, it would be extremely difficult to avenge Prince Morgier. This is troublesome. The quasi-immortal from the Morgier imperial clan frowned. The world destruction 6 kings could grow into the legendary kings of the foreign lands. Even the Morgier imperial clan didn't have the right to punish a dark king. Morgier imperial clan, the overall situation is more important. Nothing must happen to the world destruction 6 kings. Suddenly, an ancient voice rang out from the depths of the Ars Academy. Immortal King! All living beings cried out in alarm. Had the immortal king in the depths of Ars Academy finally expressed his stance? He wanted to stand on Zhun Xiaoyao's side and support him. Chapter 970. War God Academy was a top academy in the foreign realm. There were naturally immortal kings among them. Of course, it was an academy after all, so there couldn't be many immortal kings. But even an immortal king was extremely intimidating, and no one dared to provoke him. And at this moment, in the depths of War God Academy, the immortal king who almost didn't care about worldly affairs spoke, saying that he wanted to protect Zhun Xiaoyao. This weight was much heavier than Luo Xiangling. After all, although the status of a quasi-immortal was high, compared to a true immortal king, there was still some difference. Otherwise, the Scarlet Owl clan wouldn't have been promoted to a quasi-emperor clan just because of a Scarlet Owl king. In the sky, the quasi-immortal projection of the Morgier Emperor clan was shrouded in a blurry aura. However, even with that being the case, one could still sense the seriousness of his expression. Zhun Xiaoyao's identity could be said to be unexpected. And there was another person present whose expression was very ugly. Naturally, it was Fufeng of Gojosian. How is this possible? How can he be one of the 6 destruction kings? Fufeng of Gojosian was in disbelief. In the beginning, he didn't treat Zhun Xiaoyao as an opponent. Because the gap between Zhun Xiaoyao and him was too big. But now, Zhun Xiaoyao's identity as one of the 6 destruction kings was exposed. In addition to his chaos body's monstrous aptitude, when he grew up in the future, he would at least be an immortal king. In that case, wouldn't he really be worthy of Luo Xiangling? This kid hid this trump card from the beginning. Was he playing with me? He understood that Zhun Xiaoyao was beating him at his own game. Previously, he said that Zhun Xiaoyao stood behind a woman and implicated Luo Xiangling. Where was his conscience? Zhun Xiaoyao went along with the flow and stepped forward bravely. Not only did he hold Luo Xiangling's hand, but he also gained a wave of favorability. On the other hand, he exposed his identity as one of the 6 destruction kings, causing the quasi-immortal of the Morgier Emperor clan to be unable to do anything to him. With this move, the clown was actually Fufeng of Gojosian himself. When he thought of this, even Fufeng of Gojosian, who was a quasi-immortal level expert, could not help but lose his composure. As a pseudo-immortal realm warrior, he was toyed with by a junior. Where would he put his face? Fufeng of Gojosian's eyes were filled with coldness. It was only now that he truly began to take Zhun Xiaoyao seriously. Behind Zhun Xiaoyao, Luo Xiangling was also surprised by his identity. However, she heaved a sigh of relief and turned to the Morgier quasi-undying, saying coldly, "Do you still want to attack now?" The Morgier Emperor race's pseudo-undyings weren't rash people. He knew that today's matter wasn't easy to resolve. To offend our Morgier Imperial clan, this chess move of yours is not a good one. The Morgier Imperial clan quasi-undying took a deep look at Zhun Xiaoyao before his projection dissipated. It was clear that he couldn't make a decision on this matter. He needed to discuss it with the Morgier Imperial clan's undying. As the Morgier quasi-undying left, the atmosphere of heaven and earth also relaxed. What followed were many curious, passionate, worshipful, and fearful gazes. Prince Bian, Li Ju-ming, and the others' expressions were very stiff and unnatural. Tushan Wnwan and the other girls' faces were filled with worship and admiration. After all, the revelation of Zheng Xiaoyao's identity was really exciting. First, he was the inheritor of the first-generation war god's will. Then, he was the Dark Echelon, one of the 6 destruction kings. Zheng Xiaoyao was simply a perfect overlap with the image of the hero in their hearts. He even surpassed it. Zheng Xiaoyao's expression was calm, but he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Previously, he wasn't sure how much of a deterrent his identity as one of the 6 Annihilation Kings would be. Could it suppress the immortal emperor race? Now, it seemed that Zheng Xiaoyao still underestimated the identity of the 6 Destruction Kings. In the foreign realm, they were indeed respected. Zheng Xiaoyao wanted to mourn for the man in the heavenly tomb. He could have displayed his power in this era. However, as soon as he climbed out of the tomb, he was killed by Zheng Xiaoyao. Zheng Xiaoyao put away the god's weeping battle halberd, and the blood vessels also retracted into the body of the halberd. There was no trace left on Zheng Xiaoyao's arm. His white hair had also returned to its original black color. This is indeed a demonic weapon, Zheng Xiaoyao thought to himself. When using the god's weeping battle halberd, it actually needed to absorb the blood of the weapon owner. Of course, the stronger the bloodline power of the weapon owner, the stronger the power of the god's weeping battle halberd. However, if that was the case, Zheng Xiaoyao wouldn't care too much about the god's weeping battle halberd. He always felt that the god's weeping battle halberd had a deeper meaning, and it might be related to some big secret. Of course, Zheng Xiaoyao wasn't in a hurry to find out the secret of the god's weeping battle halberd. After putting away the god's weeping battle halberd, Zheng Xiaoyao looked around. No one dared to look directly at Zheng Xiaoyao among the geniuses of the same generation. After all, he was a ruthless person who could even kill Prince Mo Jie with one strike of his halberd. Even Prince Hagen and the others turned their gazes away with stiff expressions. Only one gaze had a gloomy sharpness. It was from Fufeng of Gojosian. Zheng Xiaoyao's eyes flashed with coldness. Fufeng of Gojosian. He had plenty of ways to deal with him in the future. Everyone, the show is over. Let's disperse. Zheng Xiaoyao waved his hand. Looking at Zheng Xiaoyao's calm appearance, all the geniuses sighed. He could still be so calm after killing 7 young emperor-level geniuses and confronting a quasi-immortal level expert. His temperament was simply amazing. Xiangling, thank you very much. Zheng Xiaoyao turned around and looked at Luo Xiangling. In fact, the reason why he killed Prince Mo Jie so decisively this time. Another reason was that he wanted to see how Luo Xiangling would treat him. Would she offend the immortal emperor clan for him? Now it seemed that Luo Xiangling was a little interested in him. You don't have to do that. Looking at Zheng Xiaoyao's sincere and deep eyes, Luo Xiangling didn't know how to respond for a moment. She could only give him a perfunctory answer. Do you want to come to my place? Zheng Xiaoyao said. Luo Xiangling nodded slightly. The two of them went far away. Tushan, Chun Chun, and the other girls also followed. Fufeng of Gojosian saw this scene and turned to leave expressionlessly. In terms of cultivation, he was indeed far superior to Zheng Xiaoyao for the time being. But in terms of flirting, he was stubborn and couldn't even get close to Zheng Xiaoyao. The incident on War God Mountain was temporarily over. But the impact it had was extremely far-reaching. He pulled out the god's weeping halberd. He killed Prince Mo Jie instantly. He was a quasi-immortal level expert. The identity of the 6 Annihilation Kings was exposed. Each of these incidents alone was enough to cause a stir in a state. Not to mention that all 4 major incidents happened with Zheng Xiaoyao. This simply caused a stir in all 10 states. In the Demon Abyss state, the forbidden land of the ancients, the heavenly barrier blood abyss. A stone coffin floated in the endless sea of blood. It absorbed the power of the many bloody bones in the sea of blood. In the stone coffin, there was a mist of blood. One could vaguely see a delicate figure lying in it. It seems that the first king has already pulled out his apocalyptic forbidden weapon. I will also get my apocalyptic forbidden weapon. At that time, when I gather the 6 apocalyptic forbidden weapons, I will be able to open the path to the depths of the Avacania lands and obtain the true inheritance of the 6 Annihilation Kings. Very soon, First King, I will be able to see you. Wait for me, Tilda, she muttered to herself in a coquettish voice, filled with temptation and anticipation. Chapter 971. The incident at War God Mountain had shaken the entire 10 great provinces of the foreign realm. Especially when Zhun Xiaoyao's identity as one of the 6 World Annihilation Kings was exposed. It also made everyone think of the dark 6-point star phenomenon that appeared in the sky some time ago. It was only then that everyone realized that the anomaly was caused by Zhun Xiaoyao. Many top royal clans, boundary emperor clans, and even immortal emperor clans sent people to War God Academy to meet Zhun Xiaoyao. Zhun Xiaoyao had truly become a hot commodity at the moment. Because if nothing unexpected happened, Zhun Xiaoyao would definitely become a world annihilator king in the future. At the very least, he would be an immortal king. In addition, he had the chaotic physique. This was almost a certainty. If they were able to get Zhun Xiaoyao on their side, it would be extremely beneficial for any clan. Even immortal emperor clans would be envious and unable to maintain their high and mighty indifference. However, Zhun Xiaoyao did not meet any of these envoys. In Zhun Xiaoyao's residence, Zhun Xiaoyao was sitting opposite Luo Xiangling. There was a game of Go in the middle and tea beside it. The two of them were playing Go and drinking tea. As for Tushan Chun Chun and the others, because of Luo Xiangling, they did not dare to disturb them. After all, Luo Xiangling was an ordinary woman in front of Zhun Xiaoyao. However, in front of others, she was the high and mighty Luo king. Xiaoyao, over the past few days, several immortal emperor clans have wanted to visit you, but you have rejected them. If you casually agree, they can help you resist the pressure from the Morjia emperor clan. Luo Xiangling took a sip of tea and said. Zhun Xiaoyao smiled faintly and said, "What's the point of caring about those ordinary things? Being able to play Go and drink tea with you is where the joy of life lies." Hearing this, Luo Xiangling lowered her eyes slightly. Her delicate eyelashes were like butterfly wings. A faint blush appeared on her delicate cheeks. For some reason, she became more and more shy when she was with Zhun Xiaoyao. "Xiaoyao, you will grow up to be a great figure in the future. At that time, I might even be inferior to you." Luo Xiangling joked, as if to hide his emotions. However, what she said was indeed the truth. Luo Xiangling was currently stuck in a bottleneck. It was extremely difficult for him to break through and become an immortal king. But Zhun Xiaoyao, with his monstrous talent, was destined to become immortal. "It's all thanks to you, Xiongling, that I could develop so smoothly. If I had a way, I would definitely help you break through to the immortal level." As Zhun Xiaoyao spoke, his hand silently covered Luo Xiangling's hand. Luo Xiangling's delicate body went limp, but she didn't withdraw her hand. "Xiaoyao, it's enough that you have the heart." Luo Xiangling's sparkling earlobes turned slightly red. Zhun Xiaoyao's acting skills could be said to be flawless. His flirting skills were maxed out. However, Zhun Xiaoyao's words weren't all lies. He did want to help Luo Xiangling break through to the immortal level. This way, he would be able to rope in a true immortal king. This was very important to Zhun Xiaoyao. In the future, it would be much more convenient for Zhun Xiaoyao to do things in the foreign realm. At this moment, Fei Qingshue's voice came from outside the door. "Young master, Elder Mu is here." Hearing this, Luo Xiangling subconsciously withdrew her hand. Her face actually had a hint of a young girl's blush. However, Luo Xiangling's appearance was unparalleled. Even if her age was that of an old auntie, she was still very beautiful. But at this moment, her slightly shy and delicate appearance was exceptionally seductive. Compared to a young girl who had just experienced her first awakening of love, she was even more delicate and alluring. Master Mu walked in and saw the shy look on Luo Xiangling's face. His heart skipped a beat. He thought to himself that he had come at the wrong time. "Elder Mu, what's the matter?" Zhun Xiaoyao asked. "It's like this. If there are no accidents, you will receive the True God of War title," Elder Mu said. Zhun Xiaoyao wasn't surprised by this. He had even pulled out the God's Weeping War halberd. It was natural for him to receive the God of War title. However, the training at the border is about to begin. So, the God of War title and the banquet might have to wait until after you return from the border, Elder Mu said. That doesn't matter. Jun Xiaoyao didn't mind. In fact, he wasn't interested in this so-called God of War title. It was just that this title made it convenient for him to do things in the foreign realm. Everyone in the academy is looking forward to your performance at the border. After all, a titled God of War can't be too weak. Otherwise, you will be criticized easily, Elder Mu said tactfully. Don't worry, Boss Mu. I know what to do, Jun Xiaoyao said. However, you still have to be careful in this trip to the border. There are also some top figures in the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy. I also received news that there seems to be a seed-level chaotic body in the immortal realm. Elder Mu's tone was serious. Who would have thought that there would be two chaotic bodies in this generation? Jun Xiaoyao chuckled to himself. He didn't have the chaotic body. He just had the chaotic green lotus physique that was similar to the chaotic body. As for the chaotic body in the immortal realm, he was also very curious. Who was stronger and who was weaker? Oh right, there's another very important matter. In the border, there are some ruins left behind by our world's undying. There are some strange movements. That ruin is called the Great Blood Sacrifice Ground. It's related to a forbidden undying. You have to be careful, Elder Mu said. I understand. Jun Xiaoyao nodded slightly. The Great Blood Sacrifice Ground. Just from the name alone, there must be some secrets. Moreover, it was related to a forbidden undying. Jun Xiaoyao guessed that he should have a big discovery in there. After the matter was finished, Elder Mu left. Luo Xiangling's watery eyes showed a hint of worry. Xiaoyao, the border is not a good place. Even if I accompany you, I may not be able to protect you, Luo Xiangling said worriedly. The desolate border battlefield was a vast land of chaotic laws. It was located at the gap between the two worlds. Moreover, if there really was a conflict, it would definitely be soldiers against soldiers, generals against generals. The quasi-immortal level undying on the foreign side would also confront the quasi-immortal level undying on the immortal realm side. Therefore, Jun Xiaoyao and the others could only rely on themselves. Xiangling, don't worry. I can't always rely on your protection, Jun Xiaoyao said. This time, he also had things to do in the border. It was not suitable for Luo Xiangling to follow him. Several days later, Jun Xiaoyao sat cross-legged in his residence. Within his inner universe, countless dots of light continuously converged on the seed of faith. That was the power of faith of countless slave race creatures. Tuoba Yu, as a tool, was very responsible. However, Jun Xiaoyao had not heard any news of the slave race rebelling. Presumably, that level of rebellion could not attract the attention of the high-level experts of the foreign territory. However, this was even better. It gave Tuoba Yu time to expand wildly. The only drawback was that although the power of faith provided by the slave race creatures was pure, the amount was a bit small. On the other hand, the power of faith of the Ice Spirit royal family became purer as time passed. The power of faith provided by a powerhouse was enough to match thousands of slave race creatures. Jun Xiaoyao planned to have the Ice Spirit royal family spread their teachings to the other royal families when his influence was at its peak. At that time, the power of faith that Jun Xiaoyao received would welcome a wave of explosive growth. Jun Xiaoyao did not pay attention to the seed of faith anymore. He continued to wait for it to sprout. In addition, the celestial tree had also borne fruit. The human-shaped celestial fruits were crystal clear, like ginseng fruits, and contained the power of law. Next is to break through to the supremacy level. In addition to my own comprehension, I also need the assistance of more law fragments, Jun Xiaoyao thought to himself. It was obviously not enough to rely on the law fragments provided by the celestial fruits. Oh right, there are many mysterious areas in the desolate border. Maybe I can find things like law fragments. When the time comes, I can condense the law of the physical body and directly break through to the supremacy level. Jun Xiaoyao had a plan in mind. The trip to the desolate border was bound to be fruitful. Chapter 972. The battle at the desolate border was about to begin. The entire War God Academy was in an uproar. All of the War God Academy disciples were rubbing their fists, eager to show off their skills. Amidst this atmosphere, the news of Jun Xiaoyaro being conferred the title of War God by War God Academy spread. No one was surprised. The title of War God was passed down from the first War God to begin with. Now that Jun Xiaoyaro pulled out the God's Weeping War Halberd, it was only natural that he was conferred the title of War God. Under the leadership of the War God, our War God Academy will definitely defeat the enemy at the desolate border. That's right. How can those weak creatures from the celestial domain stop the flood of our world? As the news of Jun Xiaoyaro being conferred the title of War God spread, the entire War God Academy's atmosphere was completely stirred up. Not good, the War God conferred with the primal chaos Physique, one of the 6 world destruction kings himself. Such a terrifying genius actually appeared in the other side. We need to quickly send this news back to the celestial domain, warn them, or else there will be a huge problem. The celestial domain's younger generation will suffer great losses. On a certain great province in the other side, there were creatures with serious expressions. They were spies from the celestial domain who were undercover in the other side. It was as if the celestial domain's side had spies from the other side. On the other side, there would naturally be spies from the celestial domain lying in wait, collecting all kinds of information. One could imagine what kind of huge commotion it would stir up if the news of this heaven-defying primal chaos Physique was sent back to the celestial domain, while the other side was preparing to set out. 9 Heavens Immortal Domain. An immortal island floated in the void. It was called an island, but in reality, it was no different from a continent. This immortal island was enshrouded in immortal energy, shrouded in radiance, clouds rising and rosy. There were springs and waterfalls, steep and strange peaks. Many heavenly palaces and jade palaces decorated the sky above the immortal island in picturesque disorder. All kinds of precious herbs and flowers covered the great peaks. Immortal birds and strange beasts leapt into the mountain streams. It was like a paradise on earth, a scene of immortals. This was precisely the location of the celestial domain's highest academy, 9 Heavens Immortal Academy. 9 Heavens Immortal Academy, it wasn't above the 9 immortal domains, but rather in the void. It established Immortal Island, absorbing the heroes of the 9 heavens. The 9 Heavens Immortal Realm was basically a sacred cultivation ground for the young cultivators. Only the most talented heavens favorites could enter to cultivate. Meanwhile, deep inside the 9 Heavens Immortal Institute, inside a palace shrouded in immortal light, more than 10 elders were sitting in the hall with their legs crossed. Even the weakest among them was a supreme mystic venerate. They were all elders of the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy. At this moment, an elder seated at the head seat had a serious expression, saying, "The foreign side spies have sent back news. The foreign side's sleeping imperial princes and heavenly ladies are also gradually waking up. In the future, they will clash with my Immortal Academy's disciples in desolate border. However, this isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is that a battle god has appeared in the Ars Academy. His background is extremely shocking." "Oh, what's his background?" All the elders present were curious. No matter how great his background was, he was just a junior. Although he had received the title of War God, it was impossible for him to affect the overall situation of the 2 worlds too much. "The young man who received the title of War God has a chaotic body," the elder said. "What?" These words surprised some of the elders. A chaotic body appearing in the foreign side was indeed no small matter. If he grew up, he would bring great losses to the immortal domain. Although the chaotic body is unparalleled throughout the ages, it's not like our immortal domain doesn't have one, an elder said. These words made many of the elders present nod slightly. On the immortal domain side, there was indeed a chaotic body that was sleeping in the chaotic door. Although he hadn't appeared yet, his followers, Sun Saint Protector and Moon Saint Protector, were both in the 9 Heavens Immortal Institute. As for the Star Saint Protector, he had long been killed by Jun Xiaoyaro in the original Emperor City. Back then, it was also that Star Saint Protector who instigated the Gatekeeper clan to capture Yu Chanhuan and use her as a furnace to offer to the chaotic body. If it's just the chaotic body, I wouldn't say anything. The problem is that he has another identity. What identity? One of the 6 world destruction kings, the elder seated at the head seat, said with a cold expression. These words made the entire hall fall into a deathly silence. Many elders' eyelids twitched. The 6 world destruction kings of doomsday legends. This legend wasn't only circulated in the other side. On the immortal domain side, even though most people didn't know about it. However, these higher-level figures still knew about it. The great gap that was blasted open at the border had a part of the power of the world destruction kings. If the 6 world destruction kings could become undying kings, then they would definitely be at the level of destruction. For immortal domain, it would be a great disaster. In the previous great era, the 6 world destruction kings had never truly appeared. Perhaps occasionally, 1 or 2 would appear, bringing great disaster to immortal domain. Moreover, these 6 world destruction kings were even more like a type of mandate of heaven, reincarnating endlessly, unable to be severed. In this great era, news of the 6 world destruction kings actually spread this early, moreover a chaotic body. This made the elders of Immortal Academy here all feel a type of uneasiness. Perhaps in this great era, the 6 world destruction kings would all appear. If they were all allowed to grow up, then for immortal domain, it would definitely be a disaster. It is precisely because of this that I gathered all of you here. In the Battle of Desolate Border, my Academy's disciples have an important objective, which is to kill that chaotic body. Elder Fu, I'll leave this matter up to you to inform them. The elder on the head seat said. Yes. Elder Fu stood up, slightly cupping his hands, his expression grave. It wasn't that they weren't willing to take action against the chaotic body. Rather, it was the Battle of Desolate Border, soldier against soldier, general against general, the higher-level experts in a state of confrontation. Under this type of situation, it was difficult for the experts to take action against the younger generation. That was why this was a struggle belonging to the younger generation. For my Academy's disciples, this is an enormous trial. Elder Fu sighed inwardly. Soon after, on Immortal Island, a great bell-like sound sounded. It's the summoning bell. Could it be that we have to set out for Desolate Border right now? When they heard this bell sound, many disciples of 9 Heavens Immortal Academy were shocked, at the same time feeling apprehensive. Compared to War God Academy's side's excitement and eagerness, 9 Heavens Immortal Academy's disciples were clearly even more apprehensive. After all, at the same level, their immortal domain cultivators were at a disadvantage. This Desolate Border training, for them, was extremely dangerous, could be said to be 9 deaths 1 life. On Immortal Island, there were 36 heavenly passages, 72 blessed lands. These were the residences for some of the top geniuses, seedlings, and chief disciples. At this moment, outside a heavenly passage overflowing with immortal chi, a beautiful girl with a fluttering skirt and 2 buns landed here. She respectfully said, "Empress," the summoning bell sounded. "It seems like the elders have something important to announce. I wonder if Empress, not interested, remind me again when the trip to Desolate Border starts." Within the heavenly passage, a cold, indifferent, and emotionless voice sounded. Hearing this voice, the girl sighed inwardly. This girl was the maid Sakura. As for who the person in the heavenly passage was, it went without saying. Empress Ling Yang. Chapter 973. In the past, Ling Yang was also extremely noble and cold. But it wasn't like now, where even her tone was emotionless. That kind of feeling was as if a part of the emotions in the bottom of her heart had completely died. And this change started from the death of Jun Xiaoyao. After Jun Xiaoyao's death, Ling Yang, who was originally cold, became even more unapproachable. In the past, Ling Yang even occasionally joked with Sakura. But now, Ling Yang had been cultivating in seclusion, almost living a life isolated from the world. "Empress, it's been several years. You still haven't walked out." Sakura sighed in her heart. Jun Xiaoyao had become a thing of the past. Now, not many people in the immortal realm mentioned him. Sakura felt that Ling Yang should also walk out of the shadow and look forward. In fact, logically speaking, Jun Xiaoyao had died. The one who benefited the most should be Ling Yang. As the young empress of the Xian Ting, she and the son of God of the Jun family were originally competing. But now, Ling Yang, who should have been happy, was the one who was the most depressed. It was also lamentable. Inside the heavenly abode, immortal light shrouded the place, and mist was boundless. A pitilessly beautiful woman was sitting cross-legged in the middle of it. Her face was exquisite, and her facial features were perfect as if they were carved by the heavens. Her starry eyes were embellished with coldness and indifference. Her skin was as delicate as mutton-fat jade, and her delicate body flowed with immortal light. Between her eyebrows was noble and cold. It was Ling Yang. After the world of the immortal ruins, the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy opened. She joined the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy with a group of geniuses and obtained the immortal level inheritance of creation. 3 or 4 years passed. Ling Yang's cultivation had also successfully broken through to the quasi-supreme stage. In addition, she had the mark of the Celestial Emperor's throne and was the young empress of the Xian Ting. Today, Ling Yang could be said to be the real leader of the younger generation in Xian Ting. As for Jiu Tiezi, although he was not bad, he had a bad reputation. In terms of prestige, he was far inferior to Ling Yang. However, only Ling Yang himself knew. She had lost something. It's been so long, there seemed to be a trace of emptiness in Ling Yang's eyes. Her memories were often blurry. The scene of her dancing for Jun Xiaoyao and strolling through the starry sky with Jun Xiaoyao would appear in her mind. She was gradually unable to tell whether she was Ling Yang or Fairy Yuan. Or perhaps, both. After all, Fairy Maiden Yuan had prepared a backup plan. She had burned her own body and allowed her soul to return to Ling Yang, allowing the two to fuse. Right now, she was both Ling Yang and Fairy Yuan. It was precisely because of this that Jun Xiaoyao's death was such a huge blow to Ling Yang. Ling Yang raised her jade-like hand. A jade slip was held in her hand. There was a message from Empress Wa's immortal lineage inside. Foreign realm, chaotic body. Ling Yang muttered to herself, a bit bored. Without Jun Xiaoyao, she felt that everything was boring. As the summoning bell was rung, many disciples of the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy were like carps crossing the river. They turned into streaks of light and gathered at the central square of the Immortal Island. I heard that it's a notice from Elder Fu. I wonder what it is. It should be that the desolate border trial is about to begin. As more and more disciples of the Immortal Academy arrived, many people were also discussing. Is the desolate border trial finally about to begin? I can't wait. A clear and domineering voice sounded. In the distance, a huge dragon shadow appeared. Among them stood a pitilessly beautiful woman. The woman wore a snow-white dress. Her long legs were lustrous and glossy. Her long purple hair was as smooth and shiny as silk. On her beautiful face, noble purple-gold phoenix eyes looked arrogantly in all directions. It was Long Yarrow who had grown up and transformed. It's Empress Long Yarrow. Seeing this woman, many geniuses were stunned. Long Yarrow was once one of the 7 defiant emperors. Because of Jun Xiaoyao, the reputation of the 7 defiant emperors wasn't very good. However, the main scapegoat was still Jiu Tiezi. Not many people targeted the other emperors. In the past few years, Long Yarrow had lived very comfortably. She had truly become the empress of the ancient void dragon race. At the same time, she was also a genius carefully nurtured by the Overlord Ancestral Hall. Without Jun Xiaoyao, the dark clouds in Long Yarrow's sky seemed to have dispersed. Previously, in the battle of the Sacred Body and Overlord Body, Jun Xiaoyao had crushed Long Yarrow with his avatar. Long Yarrow's Dao heart was about to collapse. Later, she activated the ancient Golden Dragon bloodline and transformed. She wanted to take revenge, but she was still crushed by Jun Xiaoyao. It could be said that those were dark days. But now, Jun Xiaoyao had fallen, and the darkness had dispersed. Jun Xiaoyao, it's a pity that you have fallen. If you were still alive, I would really want to compete with you again to completely erase the heart demon in my heart, Long Yarrow muttered to herself. After obtaining the immortal grade creation, she had also broken through to the quasi-supreme stage. However, Her only regret was that she couldn't defeat Jun Xiaoyaro with her own hands. This left a trace of heart demon in her heart. Long Yarrow believed that she would never have the chance to erase the heart demon again. At this moment, on the other side, a handsome man with flowing silver hair and wearing a crane cape stepped on the air with his hands behind his back. It was the Ascendant King. He had also broken through to the quasi-supreme stage. As for Yu Yunchang, she wasn't with the Ascendant King. The Ascendant King's expression was dull, and there was a sense of melancholy. Even after a few years, he could still vaguely hear Jun Xiaoyao's words. Friends were really extravagant. Many times, the Ascendant King had asked himself if he had done wrong. Perhaps he had, perhaps he hadn't. The only thing he could be sure of was that there was no medicine for regret in this world. As time passed, more and more geniuses gathered on the plaza. At this moment, a group of men and women arrived from the distance. Their auras were extremely shocking, attracting everyone's attention. Those people are the followers of the Jun family's Son of God. Seeing this group of men and women, many of the geniuses present revealed looks of reverence. Jun Xiaoyaro had already fallen for many years. However, his contributions to the immortal domain couldn't be erased. If not for Jun Xiaoyaro using his body to suppress the evil intent of the gods, the entire divine ruins might have been destroyed. Once the divine ruins was destroyed, the other side could directly invade. That kind of result was unimaginable. Jun Xiaoyaro had become the hero of the immortal domain. As for his followers, they were naturally respected and revered by others. Looking around, Yi Yu, Yang Qingying, Wang Chuan, and Goddess Eternal Calamity were all here. Their auras weren't weak. There was also Princess Longji. Although she hadn't officially become Jun Xiaoyao's follower, she was also in the same camp. She was also the successor of the Nine-Finger Sage Dragon Emperor. Naturally, she could also join the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy. In addition, there were a few women. Yu Chanhuan, Yang Ruming, and Taiyin Jade Hair. They had all joined the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy. In the past few years, the people around Jun Xiaoyaro had been working hard to cultivate. They stubbornly believed that Jun Xiaoyaro hadn't fallen and would definitely return one day. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly sounded. Yu Chanhuan, are you still unwilling to submit to Lord Chaos Physique? A few figures arrived. Seeing those figures, Yu Chanhuan and the others' eyes were extremely cold. Followers of the Chaos Physique. Chapter 974. There were 3 people. One of them was a familiar woman. She was dressed in green and was surrounded by immortal light. She had an otherworldly aura. Her beautiful face was covered by a veil, revealing only a pair of eyes that were as clear as water. Her aura was like a snow lotus, untainted by the world. It was Ji Qingyi. Not only was she the goddess of the Ji family of the ancients, but she was also the only successor of the human immortal sect. The successor of the human immortal sect, Ji Daoi, who had the human immortal body, had been plotted against by a foreign being and died in the godly ruins. Of course, only Ji Qingyi knew the truth. But she obviously wouldn't tell anyone. After that, Ji Qingyi joined the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy to cultivate and obtained the immortal creation in Ji Daoi's place. His current cultivation was also at Quasi-Supreme. And there was news. Ji Qingyi seemed to have some connection with the chaotic body. Although the chaotic body hadn't completely come out of seclusion, his followers had already started to travel the world. The one who spoke wasn't Ji Qingyi. It was a person wearing a silver cloak and a white mask. The mask had the image of a sun engraved on it. There was another cloaked person beside him, but judging from her graceful figure, she should be a woman. The woman also wore a mask, but it had a crescent moon engraved on it. These 2 were the followers of the chaotic body, Sun Shenghu and Moon Shenghu. Actually, there was another star Shenghu before, but he had been killed by Jun Xiaoyaro in the original imperial city. If your Lord Chaotic Body finds out that you're using such despicable means to threaten me, I wonder if his reputation will be tarnished. Yu Chanhuan said coldly. She still couldn't forget that she had been taken away by the prodigies of the gatekeeper family in the original imperial city. The culprit was Star Shenghu, one of the 3 saint protectors under the chaotic body. Ha, My lord won't care about this. You have the great moon body, so you're useful to him, Sun Shenghu said with a cold smile. Moon Shenghu also said, my lord has the unparalleled chaotic body, and he's the only one in history. If you choose to follow him, your future will be limitless. The two of them wanted Yu Chanhuan to follow the chaotic body. Previously, he had thought of making a move by force. However, the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy strictly forbade its disciples from fighting among themselves. Secondly, Yu Chanhuan had Princess Longji and Zhun Xiaoyao's followers by her side. It was unrealistic to try to force him. However, when she heard the words of the two, Yu Chanhuan's snow-white face carried traces of cold mockery. The only one since ancient times, his future is limitless. If only young master were here, hearing Yu Chanhuan's words. All the sky prides in the square fell silent. Zhun Xiaoyao was a name that couldn't be avoided. In this great world, Zhun Xiaoyao could be said to be the most resplendent star, cutting across the boundless night sky. He was the only one in the immortal domain who, since his birth, had swept through the world, never tasting defeat, a peerless monster. Even when Zhun Xiaoyao fell in the immortal ruins, many people thought that it was just the evil thoughts of the gods that were destroying his physical body, preventing him from using his full strength. Otherwise, a mere Dharma body of Zhun Bieli, even with Jiyu Tiezi and the rest of the 7 rebellious emperors, would not be able to defeat Zhun Xiaoyao. After so many years, Yu Chanhuan mentioned this person again. Many people present sighed. However, the Sun Shenghu's piercing voice rang out, Zhun Xiaoyao, a name that has almost been forgotten. There's no need to mention those who have been eliminated and buried. Master will ascend to the supreme throne and become the new king, the Moon Shenghu said with a strong sense of admiration in his voice. Even among the seed-level sky prides, the chaotic body was definitely the strongest. There were not many who could match it. The chaotic body would replace the glory of the Zhun family's son of God. Bulsh *T. On the other side, Yi Yu shouted coldly. Flames were flowing in his golden eyes of illusion breaker. As Zhun Xiaoyao's first follower, he was also the first person to follow Zhun Xiaoyao. In his heart, Zhun Xiaoyao was someone who could not be slandered. Am I wrong? Everything ends when a person dies. What's there to talk about when he's already dead? The Sun Shenghu said indifferently. The smell of gunpowder between the two sides was getting stronger. Ji Qingyi was rumored to be related to the chaotic body. However, at this moment, she stood alone on the side and did not participate in the battle. She had no intention of standing on the side of the Sun Shenghu and the Moon Shenghu. At this moment, a voice rang out again. The era that belongs to Zhun Xiaoyao has passed. What's the point of mentioning it again? A group of people walked over. The man in the lead was wearing an 8 trigrams robe. He was tall and handsome. There were 8 trigrams runes circling behind him. He was extremely aloof and had the aura of a king. It was Jiyu Tiezi of the Fuxi Immortal System. Beside him was Kang Li of the Tsungjia Immortal System, Yaro Qing of the Shennong Immortal System, and the others. It's the Xian Ting. In the current situation of the Immortal region, the Zhun clan and the Xian Ting could be said to be rivals. Seeing Jiyu Tiezi arrive, many of the prodigies present secretly looked at him with disdain. Jiyu Tiezi's reputation in the Immortal region was now extremely bad. When Zhun Xiaoyao sacrificed himself to suppress the evil intent of the gods, Jiyu Tiezi wanted to ambush him and steal the heavenly crown. In the end, he did not get the heavenly crown. Instead, he got into trouble and became the scapegoat. Of course, with his status, no one dared to say anything. You're just a small fry, how dare you speak such nonsense? Princess Longji's eyes were cold. After receiving the inheritance of the 9-finger sage dragon emperor, Princess Longji's strength had skyrocketed. Although she had not become a quasi-supreme, she had reached the peak of the sacred lord realm. Are you so arrogant just because you received the inheritance of the arch? To be honest, without Zhun Xiaoyao's support, what are you? Jiyu Tiezi's eyes were cold. If it were not for the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy forbidding internal conflicts, he would not mind killing these followers of Zhun Xiaoyao. However, his words were correct. Yi Yu and the others were not weak, But they did rely on their status as followers of Jun Xiaoyaro to achieve their current status. Enough. The training at the desolate border is near, and the enemy is right in front of us. How can you be so childish and argue? An old voice sounded. A white-robed old man stepped through the air and arrived. Greetings, Elder Fu. Many prodigies cupped their fists. Elder Fu was also one of the elders of the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy. He had real power. Elder Fu, did you summon us here for the training at the desolate border? A prodigy asked. Elder Fu's expression was very serious. He frowned and said, "That is secondary. This time, I came to inform you of a piece of bad news. Your training this time might be extremely difficult." Elder Fu's words caused the prodigies present to reveal surprised and doubtful expressions. For Elder Fu to warn them like this, it was obviously not something good. May I ask Elder Fu, what exactly is the news? A prodigy was nervous. He braced himself and cupped his fists. A war god has appeared in the Foreign War God Academy, Elder Fu said. What? These words set off waves in the plaza. The Foreign War God Academy could be said to be the opposite of the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy. And the war god of the War God Academy, everyone in the celestial realm knew that he was definitely a top monster. Only he had the qualifications to be conferred the title of War God. Previously, in the desolate border, there was a young war god of the War God Academy who had the record of killing 10 seed-level prodigies in the celestial realm. It could be said to be shocking. How could this be? Could it be that the tragic and bloody history of the past is about to reappear? Some prodigies' faces were as pale as paper. Meanwhile, what left them even more shocked was Elder Fu's following words. That War God Academy's titled War God is even a chaotic body. When these words sounded, heaven and earth fell silent. All sound was sucked away. It was dead silent, as quiet as cicadas in winter. Chapter 975. The chaotic physique was one of the top 10 physiques among the 3,000 physiques. It was even close to being in the top 5. In fact, among the 3,000 physiques, apart from the fateless one, who was ranked first, the other physiques were all ranked first. The rankings of the other physiques were constantly changing. For example, in one era, an invincible chaotic physique dominated the world and was likely to be ranked second. In another era, a heaven-defying innate sacred physique with Tao embryo appeared and defeated the chaotic physique to take the second place. Therefore, apart from the fateless one, the rankings of the other physiques were never stable. However, no matter how unstable the rankings were, there was always a gap. For example, the sacred physique of the ancients had never been pushed out of the top 10 even when the 10 shackles fell from the sky. Many even believed that if Jun Xiaoyaro had not fallen, he would have been able to do so. He might have been able to pull the sacred physique of the ancients from the top 10 to the top 5 all by himself. He might even have been able to compete for the second place. It was a pity that Jun Xiaoyaro had fallen. Otherwise, everyone would have liked to see Jun Xiaoyaro, who had the sacred physique of the ancients, fight with the chaotic physique. At this moment, they heard Elder Fu say that there was a chaotic physique in the foreign realm. The whole place was dead silent. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Impossible. Sun Shenghu and Moon Shenghu shouted at the same time. The chaotic physique is unparalleled since ancient times. It is already a great era to have one in an era. How can there be two? Sun Shenghu shouted in disbelief. That's right. My lord is the only one with the chaotic physique. Could the one in the foreign realm be a fake? Moon Shenghu also found it hard to believe. They couldn't be blamed for being so. That was because in their hearts, their lord was the only one with a primal chaos body, a supreme existence. Now, there was someone with the same physique as their lord in the foreign realm. They naturally couldn't accept it. Do you think I'm joking? Or are you doubting the source of the Immortal Academy's information? Elder Fu snorted coldly. I wouldn't dare. Both of them lowered their heads and cupped their hands. No disciple dared to offend Elder Fu's authority in the Immortal Academy. It seems that this is true. The Immortal Academy's information can't be wrong. I didn't expect that the chaotic physique of the immortal realm would appear before the chaotic physique of the foreign realm. Many geniuses were discussing with solemn expressions. A chaotic body that obtained the war god title was going to participate in this desolate border training. To the geniuses of the immortal realms, this was definitely bad news. Even if a primal chaos physique really appeared in the other side, they still wouldn't be my family sir's match. Sun Shenghu and Moon Shenghu said firmly. In their hearts, even though they all had the chaotic body, their lord was the strongest. At this moment, Elder Fu added, although the war god-level chaotic body is powerful, it's not like our world doesn't have anyone capable of dealing with it. Most importantly, that primal chaos body is one of the 6 apocalyptic kings. His words shocked all the sky prides, even more than the chaotic physique. The legends of the world destroying 6 kings belonged to the other side. However, the immortal region naturally knew this as well. This was especially the case with 9 Heavens Immortal Academy. As the academy that nurtured immortal domains elites, they naturally had to share a lot of information with these disciples. Meanwhile, the other side's doomsday legends, the legends of the world-destroying 6 kings, were precisely the most important. That chaotic body is actually one of the 6 apocalyptic kings? All the sky prides were speechless. Their expressions stiffened, and some of them were dumbfounded. With so many identities added together, it was just too terrifying. Was there really such a monstrous figure in the other side? Sun Shenghu and Moon Shenghu were speechless. Even though they were wearing masks, their stiff and unnatural expressions could still be felt. Now, even they couldn't guarantee that their lord would be able to defeat the chaotic body of the other side. The chaotic body of the other side has such a great background. Gu Tiezi frowned. Just how powerful is the chaotic body? Long Yarrow was also trying to figure it out. Seeing the serious expressions of the sky prides present, Elder Fu shook his head slightly and sighed. Therefore, your main goal this time is to surround and kill the chaotic body. No matter what method you use, single or encirclement, as long as you can kill the chaotic body, you will receive huge rewards and glory. Elder Fu's words made many sky prides' eyes light up. However, even more sky prides still had serious expressions. If the chaotic body was so easy to kill, then it wouldn't be called the chaotic body. Perhaps only the sky prides who have obtained immortal level fortunes or seed level characters have a chance. Some sky prides sighed. Some of the seed level sky prides in the immortal realm had already awakened, but they hadn't come to the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy yet. However, those seed level sky prides would also participate in the desolate border training. At that time, the desolate border would be their stage. The chaotic body of the 6 world-destroying kings, and the war god of the other side, even the seed-level sky prides might not be able to block it, right? A sky pride's voice trembled slightly. It's hard to say even if the chaotic body of our immortal realm takes action, let alone others. Many sky prides were very nervous, guilty, and a little flustered. If the Jun family's son of God was still here, he should be able to block it. Suddenly, a sky pride spoke, immediately causing the noisy square to fall silent. Many people's eyes were filled with admiration and nostalgia. Jun Xiaoyaro was known to be invincible in the younger generation, never tasting defeat. Even if he died in the end, it was only because of the evil intent of the god. That's right, if the Jun family's son of God was still here, that chaotic body of the other side would be nothing. Some sky pride said, reminiscing the time when Jun Xiaoyao's name shook the ancient road, dominating the current world. Gloomy and disgusted gazes were cast at Gu Tiezi. Gu Tiezi's face was slightly ashen. He was like a rat on the street now. Although it wasn't to the extent that everyone wanted to beat him up, it was close. If it weren't for his identity and strength, he would probably be beaten up wherever he went. Young Master, Yang Qingying, Yu Chanhuan, and the others had nostalgia in their eyes. Yang Rumeng, Princess Longji, and the others were the same. They had firmly believed that Jun Xiaoyaro would definitely return. However, a few years had passed, and everything seemed to have been settled. On the 9 Heavens Immortal Academy's side, the news of the chaotic body of the other side was announced, causing an uproar. Many seed-level sky prides who had awakened also received the news. The chaotic body of the other side, interesting. In a deep abyss whirlpool, a figure exuding the demonic aura of a supremacy mumbled to himself. He was the seed-level sky pride of the Nether King bloodline, the Holy Yama. The chaotic body of the other side, if I can kill him, it will be an unprecedented achievement. The seed-level sky pride of the Dragon King Palace, Xian Haoqiong's golden dragon eyes shone brightly. The chaotic body, if I can obtain the chaotic origin, it will be greatly beneficial to me. In an ancient cave on the sacred Spirit Island, a pale-skinned young master had a cold glint in his narrow eyes. He was the seed-level sky pride of the sacred Spirit Island, the young master of white bones. In the mystic heaven immortal realm, the sun god mountain. In a blazing sun, a muscular man wrapped in sun god flames stepped out. The 10 princes of the current generation are all trash. The sun god mountain still needs me to clear its name. The seed-level sky pride of the sun god mountain, the golden crow young sacred king, had awakened from his slumber in the sun. Chapter 976. The news of the chaotic physique caused a huge commotion in the celestial realm. Some of the seed-level prodigies who had already awakened all set their sights on the chaotic physique. Not to mention the benefits of killing the chaotic physique. Just the reputation alone was enough to make countless people go crazy. What was the first thing those seed-level prodigies who had been sleeping for a long time did after waking up? Of course, it was to make their reputation known and establish prestige for themselves. If one wanted to stand out in this world of great battles, they didn't just need to be talented and powerful. Fighting for luck and faith was also very important. Zhun Xiaoyao's plan was to pretend to sacrifice himself to protect the border. In fact, he had gained a wave of popularity and faith in an invisible way. In the future, Zhun Xiaoyao would be able to receive the blessing of the public's luck. The fastest way for these seed-level prodigies to establish prestige was to kill the chaotic physique of the foreign realm. For a time, the entire 9 heavens immortal realm was stirred up. Many prodigies were eager to fight and set their sights on the chaotic physique. On the foreign realm's side, their battle intent was also high. Some young experts of the immortal emperor clans appeared, and they were strong enough to compete with the seed-level figures of the celestial realm. Some people even saw a bright light shining in the sky, a bloody light illuminating the sky, and a strange phenomenon appearing. Those were the princes and heavenly daughters of the immortal emperor clans awakening to conquer the desolate border. On the Ars Academy's side, Zhun Xiaoyao also received the notice that he was about to set off for the desolate border. Xian Yu was still recuperating, so Zhun Xiaoyao asked her to stay in his residence. As for Fei Qingxue, she stayed at home and continued to cultivate in the academy. As for Su Hongyi, Zhun Xiaoyao also planned to let her go to the desolate border. Because Su Hongyi was different from Fei Qingxue, Zhun Xiaoyao thought that Su Hongyi was also one of the 6 destruction kings, but for some reason, she hadn't awakened yet. Su Hongyi might have an unexpected gain in the desolate border. Next, it was Tushan Chun and Tushan Wanwan. However, to Zhun Xiaoyao's surprise, they didn't plan to go to the desolate border. "I'm sorry, sir. Although I also want to go to the desolate border with you," fourth sister said no. Tushan Chun pursed her lips and glanced at Tushan Wn with hidden bitterness. Normally speaking, in a dangerous place like desolate border, it was a good time to warm up feelings. Tushan Chun was still fantasizing about playing the hero saving the damsel in distress and falling in love with Zhun Xiaoyao. "Apologies, young master, it was big sister's orders. She said that we have to go back and prepare for the matchmaking assembly. It will be held after the desolate border matters are concluded." As Tushan Wn spoke, a trace of loneliness appeared on her face. During this period of time, Tushan Wn had made up her mind. She also understood who she liked. However, Zhun Xiaoyao was too outstanding. Primal chaos body, a titled battle god, and one of the 6 world-destroying kings. Countless immortal emperor clans would do anything to snatch Zhun Xiaoyao. There were also peerless beauties like the Luo king, who had both looks, strength, and status. In comparison, even Tushan Wn, who was one of the 5 beauties of Tushan, felt extremely dim. To others, the Tushan family was an unreachable monarch family. However, in Zhun Xiaoyao's eyes, it was just SOSO. He even dared to go against the Morgia family. How could he treat Tushan Wn differently just because of her background in Tushan? Therefore, although Tushan Wn was moved, she couldn't say it out loud. Matchmaking assembly. Jun Xiaoyaro muttered to himself. He suddenly thought of someone. Kai Hongyu of the Kai Xiao family. His younger brother, Kai Lingkong, died at the hands of Jun Xiaoyaro. However, before this, Jun Xiaoyaro sensed the aura of one of the 9 great heavenly books, the Soul Book, on Kai Lingkong. He also guessed that Kai Hongyu, Kai Lingkong's brother, might have the Soul Book. At the very least, it had something to do with the Soul Book. Another clue was that the third princess of Tushan, Tushan Xiaoxiao, had mentioned it before. Kai Hongyu had once pursued the 5 beauties of Tushan. However, at that time, the Kai Xiao monarch hadn't broken through to become an immortal king. Therefore, Kai Hongyu didn't even have the right to pursue her. Now that the Tushan 5 beauties were holding a matchmaking assembly, Kai Hongyu wouldn't miss it. Jun Xiaoyaro had also deliberately asked around about Kai Hongyu. Later, he found out that Kai Hongyu was directly chosen by the Kai Xiao king, an immortal of the Kai Xiao family, and was taken in as his last disciple. This was also why Kai Hongyu didn't come to the Ars Academy. Being personally taught by an immortal king was better than coming to the Ars Academy. One could imagine that after being taught by an immortal, Kai Hongyu's strength must be extremely strong. He might even be as strong as the 7 minor emperors. Sir! Seeing that Jun Xiaoyaro was a little absent-minded, Tushan Wn thought it was because of the matchmaking assembly. Her heart couldn't help but skip a beat. Could it be that Jun Xiaoyaro wasn't indifferent to the matchmaking assembly? Sir, are you willing to let us marry someone else? Tushan Chuanchuan's big, bright eyes widened. She looked at Jun Xiaoyaro with a silly and innocent face. Compared to Tushan Wn, she was more innocent and simple. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled and didn't say anything. Tushan Wn took a deep breath. Her breasts rose and fell as if she had mustered up her courage. When the matchmaking assembly starts, will Sir come? The 2 beauties of the Tushan Fox clan both stared at Jun Xiaoyaro, their little hearts thumping. I think so, Jun Xiaoyaro said. If he didn't go to the matchmaking assembly, how would he meet Kai Hongyu and get the Soul Book? And Yun Xiaohei, according to Tushan Wn, had left alone. At that time, there might be some unexpected and interesting things that might happen. It would be a pity if Jun Xiaoyaro wasn't there for such a good show. Yay! Tushan Chun cheered. Tushan Wn also smiled slightly. But she was still nervous. Jun Xiaoyaro only agreed to participate in the matchmaking assembly. He didn't really say that he was going to participate. After some preparation, Jun Xiaoyaro prepared to leave with Su Hongyi. As soon as he went out, he saw a beautiful figure standing in the void. She was wearing a smoky long dress. She was beautiful and charming, and her beauty was a little soul-stirring. She was as bright as the sun, as smooth as jade, and as beautiful as a flower reflected in the water. It was unforgettable. Who else could it be if not Luo Xiangling? Su Hongyi, who was right next to Jun Xiaoyaro, was completely dumbfounded. Her face was filled with envy. Although she didn't have the ugly scars on her body, she was still a beauty. But obviously, she hadn't grown up yet. She was still a distance away from a beauty like Luo Xiangling. Xiaoyao, you must be careful on this trip to the barren border, Luo Xiangling said. Don't worry. Jun Xiaoyao smiled. It seemed that Luo Xiangling was really interested in him. At the same time, in the depths of the academy, in the residence of Fufeng of Gojosian. Fufeng of Gojosian's face was cold. He picked up a jade slip and seemed to be sending a message to someone. After that, Fufeng of Gojosian's lips curled into a cold smile. I don't need to do anything for the chaotic body. The barren border is chaotic and doesn't belong to the rules of our world. Even an undying being can't find out the cause and effect, let alone find me. The barren border will be the place where the chaotic body will be buried. Fufeng of Gojosian didn't care about Jun Xiaoyao's identity as one of the 6 kings of destruction. If he offended him, he would kill him no matter how powerful his background was. Chapter 977. Dong. 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 The sound of a bell rang like a great bell. That was War God Academy's war bell ringing. It represented War God Academy's departure. The desolate border training has finally arrived. I can't wait any longer. I really want to see the terrified expressions of those immortal domain ants. Chaotic body Great One has appeared, moreover one of the world-destroying 6 kings. In this great era, my side will definitely be able to break through the border pass and occupy immortal domain. Many long howls resounded from all directions of Victory Academy. The various king clans, peak king clans, half-emperor clans, and even emperor clans' heavenly talents all turned into streaks of rainbow light, rising into the air. Because of Jun Xiaoyaro, War God Academy's morale was high. Prince Hagen, Li Jiui, Pu Yarrow, Jin Zhon, and the other 10 great heavenly king-level geniuses also appeared. Only, their expressions weren't too good. In the past, they were the focal point of everyone's attention. Yet now, before Jun Xiaoyaro even appeared, he already seized all of the glory. How could such a monster appear? This is too abnormal. Prince Hagen's expression was cold. He always felt that Jun Xiaoyao's appearance was too strange. After all, this type of exceptional monster was never heard of before. It was as if he was born out of thin air. But now, Jun Xiaoyao's popularity was too great, even the undying emperor clans fighting over him, wanting to rope him in. No one would listen to his doubts. Relax, whether or not he can return alive from this trip to the desolate border is still not certain. Li Jiui said with a sneer. You mean? Pu Yarrow and the others' eyes turned. Right now, Immortal Domain should already know about his news. Do you all think that Immortal Domain will allow him to continue growing? Li Jiui said. Indeed, Immortal Domain might launch an assassination operation. Pu Yarrow nodded slightly. The so-called assassination operation was precisely the Great War between 2 worlds. A group of elites would be sent out to kill the enemy's monster heavenly talents, nipping them in the bud. Immortal Domain's side was called the Assassination Guard. The other side's side was called the Hunters. Even though the names were different, the meaning was the same. One could imagine that if news of Jun Xiaoyaro spread to Immortal Domain, it would definitely draw the attention of Immortal Domain. At that time, no matter how strong Jun Xiaoyaro was, he would still be in danger. I hope so, said Prince Hagen. Even though Jun Xiaoyao's identity as one of the World Annihilation's 6 kings was extremely important to the other side. However, they didn't want Jun Xiaoyaro to become an immortal king in the future. At this moment, there was an uproar from all directions. Prince Bai'an and the others looked over, and their faces sank. It was Jun Xiaoyaro and Su Hongyi. Greetings, War God. Greetings, my lord. Long live the Chaos War God. Many of the Ars Academy's disciples cheered, looking at Jun Xiaoyaro with fervent and reverence. They clasped their hands in greeting. Some people even gave Jun Xiaoyaro the title of Chaos War God. It was the combination of the Chaos Body and the War God title. Primal Chaos War God, what a Chinibya name. Jun Xiaoyaro grumbled inwardly as he heard the cheers all around him. However, if the truth was exposed in the end, the Primal Chaos War God, one of the 6 world-destroying kings, was actually someone from the immortal realm. Who knew if their worldview would crumble? Of course, this was a matter for the future. Jun Xiaoyaro wouldn't return to the immortal realm directly from the desolate border. Because of the Soul Book, the Bayan clan's matter, and the news of his father hadn't been investigated clearly. In addition, the great mission of preaching still had to continue. There was also the quasi-carnate sacred body Tao embryo that was still brewing in the heavenly tomb. If Jun Xiaoyaro wanted to return to the immortal realm, he naturally had to return in the most prosperous, perfect, and powerful state. At that time, the chaos body would be combined with the quasi-carnate sacred body Tao embryo. Who else could it be? Patience, I still need to go undercover for a while. No rush, there's still the Avacania lands to investigate, Jun Xiaoyaro thought to himself. He had a vague feeling. In the Avacania lands, he might find some secrets about the foreign realm. Perhaps he could even find the origin of the dark matter. He might even find some clues about the source and the great calamity of the era that the myth Empress Mi Fei mentioned. However, I don't know the way to enter the Avacania lands yet. But ordinary people can't even get close. If I want to get close in the future, I have to obtain the complete trust and attention of the foreign realm. In other words, I need to perform well in the desolate border, amaze the foreign realm, and even shock them. Zhun Xiaoyao's thoughts were meticulous as he pondered. This was the so-called proof of allegiance of the foreign realm. You had to make contributions, perform well, establish great merits, and only then could you obtain true trust and attention. But in that case, you would have to kill the creatures of the immortal realm. Although it's not good to say this, in the immortal realm, I have quite a few enemies. Zhun Xiaoyao's eyes revealed a bit of cold light. Some people in the immortal realm, to him, were no different from the creatures of the foreign realm. For example, the Xian Ting, the Archean royalty, and some hostile forces of the Zhun family. Zhun Xiaoyao didn't feel the slightest psychological burden when killing the people of these forces. He even felt a bit happy. Just as Zhun Xiaoyao was thinking. Suddenly, a powerful and extraordinary aura appeared, making Zhun Xiaoyao cast his gaze over. A sea of blood surged over from the heavens, the aura of a supreme being pervading the air. A blood-robed man stepped out from the sea of blood. His head of long blood-colored hair flowed down like a river of blood. Within his eyes, it was as if there were two blood-colored lakes. It's the Blood Devil Emperor clan's Blood Emperor child. When they saw this person, someone cried out in alarm. The Blood Devil Emperor clan was also an undying emperor clan of the foreign realm. They innately grasped Blood Dao divine abilities, having the ability to rebirth from a drop of blood, condense weapons from blood, sacrifice the world, and other powerful abilities. On the other side of the heavens, an expanse of fiery clouds appeared, as if it was going to burn that part of the heavens down. A giant fiend beast void figure appeared. This was a vicious beast that looked like a black dog, its tail actually roiling and burning like flames. In the end, this vicious beast turned into a skinny, sinister-faced man. Disaster Battle Clan's Pride of Heaven, who? Disaster, this was a legendary beast of fire and inauspicious. The Disaster Battle Clan was also an emperor clan of the foreign realm. This man was precisely the Disaster Battle Clan's Pride of Heaven, named Hu. In addition, on the other side of the heavens, another living being appeared. It had the head of a true dragon, the body of a human, and the legs of a bird's claws. There were feathers on both of its arms. This living being seemed to have arrived on a rainy day. Prince Jimeng of the Jimeng clan. The surrounding prodigies were all numb. These Emperor clan prodigies that were rarely seen appeared one after another. Every one of them had an unreachable status, and ordinary people could only look at their backs. Seeing is believing. One of the 6 destruction kings, you live up to your reputation. The Blood Devil Emperor of the Blood Devil Emperor clan looked at Zhun Xiaoyao and smiled. Unparalleled primordial chaotic body, and you even pulled out the god's weeping war halberd, becoming the successor of the first war god. You are indeed extraordinary, Prince Jimeng said. He, the first person to be conferred the title of war god in this era. Who of the Disaster Battle clan laughed? It was a little hoarse, like sandpaper rubbing against each other. It was extremely ear-piercing and gave people an uncomfortable feeling. These 3 people. Zhun Xiaoyao raised his eyebrows. The 3 of them seemed to be complimenting each other, but he felt that something was wrong. Could it be? A dark light flashed past Zhun Xiaoyao's eyes. Chapter 978. Zhun Xiaoyao's spiritual perception was extremely sharp, and he even had a sense of danger. In addition, he was quick-witted and intelligent. He had a feeling that these 3 emperor race prides in front of him harbored ill intentions. Until now, Zhun Xiaoyao had made many enemies in the foreign realm. However, he believed that the Black Peacock royal family from before wouldn't have the guts to provoke him again. And these 3 people in front of him, if they really wanted to harm him, then they must have been instigated by someone. Is it the Infernal Emperor clan, the Morgia Emperor clan, or the Fufeng of Gojosian? In an instant, Zhun Xiaoyao's thoughts ran thousands of times. With the 3-world primordial spirit, his mind was like a supercomputer. He had a grudge with Li Jiuyi, but logically speaking, Li Jiuyi was at least still alive. He wasn't that impulsive. Then only the Morgia Emperor clan and the Fufeng of Gojosian were left. Both sides were possible. Especially the Fufeng of Gojosian, Jun Xiaoyaro had already seen through his narrow-mindedness. After knowing that he was one of the World Destruction Six Kings, he would naturally be even more unhappy. In addition, he was also an ancient supreme of the Academy, a quasi-immortal, so the power he could mobilize was also great. Jun Xiaoyaro was guessing. However, Jun Xiaoyaro didn't take this matter to heart. Even though these three emperor race prides of heaven were all supreme beings. But wanting to kill him in the desolate border was still a bit wishful thinking. It's just some false reputation. What's there to mention? Jun Xiaoyaro smiled faintly and replied. I hope that a primal chaos war god like you can make a name for our world in the desolate border, Prince Jimeng said with a smile. Same to you, Jun Xiaoyaro said. This conversation seemed peaceful, but there was an undercurrent surging. It was just that outsiders couldn't detect it. Then, a few more emperor race prides of heaven appeared, each of them surging with auras. The weakest was a quasi-supreme. This made Jun Xiaoyaro secretly frown. As expected, there was still a gap between the strength of the immortal domain and the foreign realm. If not for the fact that the immortal domain still had some dormant seeds. Just relying on the current generation's heavenly talents was hard to compare to the other side. Alright, everyone. Without further ado, let's set off. Elder Mu appeared and said. This time, he was the one leading the team. Ancient warships over a few hundred zhong or even 1,000 zhong long floated in the sky. There were also all types of ferocious flying ancient beasts pulling bronze war chariots, all of them ready to go. The desolate border training this time couldn't be considered a true great decisive battle between two worlds, but the scene was still extremely shocking. Under Old Mu's lead, Jun Xiaoyaro and the others left Ars Academy and headed towards the Barren Lands. Apart from War God Academy, the other side's 10 great provinces were also mobilized. The various general tribes, royal tribes, boundary monarch tribes, and monarch tribes had all sent out many living beings and young geniuses. The Ars Academy was just one of the many factions of power. Of course, the Nine Heavens Immortal Academy was not the only one from the mystic realm. The 9 immortal orthodoxes of the Xian Ting, the Jun family, the clan of the ancients, the Archean royalty, the Super Jin dynasty, the imperishable orthodoxes, and so on would all participate. Even though it wasn't a decisive battle this time, it could be said to be the first great mobilization of the two realms. Jun Xiaoyaro looked at the vast and mighty foreign great army that covered the sky, a grave expression hidden at the depths of his eyes. The other side's backing and strength were even greater than what he had imagined. No wonder they could pose such a threat to immortal domain. Jun Xiaoyaro was extremely curious. Just what exactly was the source of the other side? When the other side mobilized, Immortal Domain's great army naturally also moved in a grandiose manner, heading towards the border pass, and then leaving for the desolate border. At the border of the foreign great provinces, there were giant transport formations that could directly transport them to the desolate border. The other side didn't have a great border pass like Immortal Domain. It was because the other side were invaders to begin with, so they didn't fear Immortal Domain's invasion. Moreover, the other side's darkness matter wasn't something Immortal Domain's creatures could easily endure. After entering the transport formation, Jun Xiaoyaro only felt the surrounding space shake intensely. The scene around him instantly distorted. From time to time, flames would reach the heavens, magma everywhere, as if they returned to the initial stage of ancient stars. Then, there were layers upon layers of mist, who knew how many millions and millions of li, all of it filled with origin magnetic energy. Then, there were all types of poisonous miasma swamps, lands of thunderstorms, regions of strong winds, and others. After who knew how much time had passed, who knew how many regions they passed through. In the end, the surrounding chaotic space finally came to a stop. Jun Xiaoyaro looked over, immediately taking a deep breath. As far as the eye could see, there was only an endless desert. The great desert was covered in smoke, the long river setting sun, as if it was a desolate desert. Even when one's divine senses swept out, they still couldn't find the limits of the desert. Above the heavens, it wasn't a blue sky, but rather a pitch-black and deep starry sky. All types of celestial bodies flickered, stars shining. This was a desert under an endless starry sky. This is the desolate border, Jun Xiaoyaro muttered to himself. It wasn't just him, for most of the foreign young creatures here, this was their first time coming to the desolate border. They were all shocked by the scene before their eyes. The remains of unknown giant beasts were as large as mountains, towering into the starry sky. Collapsed ancient mountains, celestial bodies that fell from the starry sky, smashing open ancient craters one after another on the ground. This was an expanse of desolate and deathly still, moreover a chaotic region. Jun Xiaoyaro walked up, grabbing a handful of sand on the ground. This sand was a sinister white color. This isn't sand, but rather the dust left behind after skeletal remains weathered away. Jun Xiaoyaro said. The other heavenly geniuses also noticed this, all of them incredibly shocked. This boundless desolate border desert was actually completely formed from the bones of creatures after they died. Just how many creatures died here? There were some foreign heavenly geniuses who were absent-minded, muttering to themselves. Even though the foreign side revered the iron and blood laws of the jungle, when they saw this scene, their minds were still shaken. The bones of the faithful are buried everywhere on the Green Mountain. Why is there a need to bury their bodies in battle? My side's ancestors died here, this is their glory. Meanwhile, what we need to do is to complete the will of our ancestors, blast through the border pass, trample immortal domain. Elder Mu shouted loudly. Correct, blast through the border pass, trample immortal domain. Large groups of foreign creatures all began to shout out. Jun Xiaoyaro inwardly frowned. The foreign side was so persistent in invading immortal domain, just what was the reason? Could it be that it was purely for immortal domain's land and resources? Jun Xiaoyaro vaguely felt like there were even deeper secrets within. Alright, from now on, my side's great army will confront immortal domain's great army, fight a slaughter. However, your mission is not to follow the army onto the battlefield to kill the enemy, but rather to enter desolate borders' various regions, fight against immortal domain's heavenly geniuses. Immortal domain's heavenly geniuses, kill as many as you can, cut off their younger generation's path of growth, create a gap. Elder Mu said loudly. The true great battle hadn't started yet. That was why the great figures of the two sides were all overseeing things, not rashly taking action. The great army below was also just probing things out. The most important thing was these younger generations' trial. Little friend, are you sure you don't need anyone else to take care of you? Elder Mu looked towards Jun Xiaoyaro. He originally wanted a few Emperor clan elites and Jun Xiaoyaro to follow them, so that they could take care of each other. Even if they encountered danger, these Emperor clan elites could also be used as scapegoats. As long as Jun Xiaoyaro was fine, it was fine. After all, his identity was special, extremely important to the foreign side. True gold still needs to be refined by fire. I have the title of war god. If I still fear the slightest thing, wouldn't that be inviting ridicule? Jun Xiaoyaro said in a carefree manner. However, in reality, he just didn't want to be restricted. When Elder Mu heard this, he also nodded. Young master, I want to go experience it alone. On the side, Su Hongyi hesitated for a moment before speaking. She hoped that she could become stronger, so that she wouldn't be a burden to Jun Xiaoyaro. All right. Jun Xiaoyaro replied. Su Hongyi had secrets on her, and her talent was extremely great. She only lacked the tempering between life and death. Jun Xiaoyaro believed that if Su Hongyi really was one of the World Destruction's 6 kings, then she definitely wouldn't be easily harmed. Everyone from Immortal Domain, have you been well? Jun Xiaoyaro muttered inwardly. His foot stepped into the void, and his figure tore through the air, disappearing from his original spot. Desolate Borders trial officially began. Chapter 979. The Desolate Border was located between the Celestial Realm and the Foreign Realm. However, it was boundless and had no end in sight. Even the primal Chaos Dao Venerate and Boundary Emperors could not search every corner of the Desolate Border. The Desolate Border was too mysterious. It was not under the jurisdiction of the two realms since ancient times. The rules were broken and the aura was chaotic. This was a land without order, and there were many strange things hidden in it. For example, the Burial Ground, Ghost Howling Abyss, Broken Star Plateau, Heaven Burial Forest, Blood Sacrifice Ground, desolate ancient mountain range, and so on. Every place was a forbidden land. It was extremely dangerous and strange. Jun Xiaoyaro had some understanding of the desolate border before coming here. The blood sacrifice ground that Elder Mu had asked him to pay attention to was located at the border between the Heaven Burial Forest and the desolate ancient mountain range. Let's go to the Heaven Burial Forest first. Jun Xiaoyaro confirmed his target and took a step forward, disappearing from where he was as if he was traveling through space. Many Ars Academy disciples wanted to train with Jun Xiaoyaro. However, Jun Xiaoyaro was already nowhere to be seen before he could even say anything. On the other side, Prince Ji Meng, the Blood Emperor, and Kai from the Hua fighting clan exchanged glances. Their figures also disappeared on the spot. After that, the Ars Academy disciples, as well as the prodigies of the various King, Boundary, and Monarch clans, formed their own teams and gradually entered the desolate border. On the other side, the prodigies of the celestial realm did the same. Those who were confident in their own strength would enter alone. Those who were not confident or had a plan would enter in small teams. In an instant, the entire desolate border became a deadly battlefield. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. On the desolate border, the armies of the two realms clashed. Shouts shook the sky. Of course, the true top experts like the primal chaos Dao Venerate and Boundary Emperors did not make a move. On the other hand, the younger generation fought fiercely in every corner of the desolate border. During this half a month, Jun Xiaoyaro also crossed the void and finally arrived at the edge of the Heaven Burial Forest. Looking around, the entire Heaven Burial Forest was extremely vast. It was like a huge continent. Ancient trees towered thousands of feet into the sky, as if they were ancient giants standing in the middle of the forest. In this forest, there were many murderous, intense, and ferocious beasts hiding in the dark. From time to time, there were all kinds of intense fighting sounds and miserable howls. Jun Xiaoyaro was not interested in these things. His main goal was to find an opportunity to break through to the Nine Heavens Supreme Realm. What came next was to kill a few immortal domain enemies to establish their allegiance. Of course, if they ran into some ants from the other side, they could easily get rid of them. In any case, this place's aura was chaotic and karma was disorderly. Even an undying wouldn't be able to find any traces. The Heaven Burial Forest should be one of the main battlegrounds for the geniuses of the two worlds. I can go there and capture some immortal cultivators to gather information about the immortal realms. Jun Xiaoyaro thought to himself. He seemed to have thought of something and took out a grimace mask from his spatial artifact. It was the mask he had obtained from Shen Yu. Jun Xiaoyaro put on the ghost mask. This was to prevent any acquaintances from the immortal domain from recognizing him. It wasn't that Jun Xiaoyaro wanted to hide it from them. It was just that he had finally become a primal chaos war god. He definitely couldn't expose his identity as one of the 6 world destruction kings. Otherwise, Jun Xiaoyaro wouldn't even be able to return to the other side. He could only return to the immortal domain. Then, he wouldn't be able to continue doing some things in the other side, including preaching. Jun Xiaoyaro wouldn't allow any accidents to happen. He wore the ghost mask on his face, and chaotic mist lingered around his body. Jun Xiaoyaro believed that not many people would recognize him. After making preparations, Jun Xiaoyaro entered the Heaven Burial Forest. At this moment, in the central region of the Heaven Burial Forest, a few beautiful figures formed a small team and were going deeper. Along the way, they encountered some scattered creatures from the other side and killed them all. On a closer look, they were Princess Longji, Yang Rumeng, and Yu Chanhuan. The 3 of them met because of Jun Xiaoyaro and became friends. As for Yi Yu, Yang Qingying, Wang Chuan, and Goddess Eternal Calamity, as Jun Xiaoyao's followers, they formed a hunting team. The 2 teams split into 2 groups and went on their own adventures. I already have tens of thousands of merit points. When the time comes, I can exchange them for some good things in the Immortal Academy, Yu Chanhuan said with a smile. Her eyebrows were curved, and her eyes were clear. Her nose was tall, and her lips were red and moist. Her blue dress outlined her impressive curves. Her breasts were full, but her waist was slender and round. Her butt was perky. Perhaps it was because of the great yin body, but Yu Chanhuan's figure was fuller and juicier than before. Unfortunately, this woman with the world's best furnace constitution hadn't been exploited yet. She had already made up her mind that her body would always belong to Jun Xiaoyao. Even if Jun Xiaoyao died in front of her, she still adhered to her oath until now. It's not enough. I need to become stronger to be qualified to welcome Master's return. Princess Longji's hair was soft and smooth. Her palace dress wrapped around her slender body, and her slender legs swayed gracefully. She was gorgeous and didn't look like Jun Xiaoyao's mount at all. Hearing the two women's words, Yang Rumeng, who was wearing a pink dress and a flawless face, fell into silence. Do you still believe that he's still alive? Yang Rumeng asked. Yang Rumeng also felt a sense of loss after hearing the news of Jun Xiaoyao's death. But she still accepted this reality helplessly. Of course I believe that Master will return. Princess Longji's faith in Jun Xiaoyao was almost irrational. Perhaps Jun Xiaoyao had this charm that could make people believe that he hadn't died. Let's not talk about this for now. I have a feeling that there's a great opportunity and a great secret in the depths of Heaven Burial Forest, Yang Rumeng said seriously. Her true form was the Sky Dream butterfly. She was on par with the crack demonic butterfly and the archaic emperor butterfly. Yang Rumeng already had this feeling when she entered the Heaven Burial Forest. Then let's continue, Princess Longji said. The three of them continued. A few days later, they arrived at the depths of Heaven Burial Forest. There were shocking waves of battle in front of them. Princess Longji and the others looked over. 4 figures were fighting with the creatures of the other territory. 3 of them were Ji Qingyi, Sun Shenghu, and Moon Shenghu. There was also a purple-haired man with a powerful aura. He exuded the aura of a supreme. It's Tian Kanzi from the divine Silkworm Valley. Seeing that young man, Yang Rumeng subconsciously frowned. Because she had an unpleasant experience with the divine Silkworm Valley. Yuan Kanzi from the divine Silkworm Valley had harassed her before. But he was killed by Jun Xiaoyao in the end. Who is it? Come out. A young man in a black and gold robe shouted coldly from the creatures of the other territory. He raised his hand and his palm cracked. A beam of light from the evil eye pierced through. If Jun Xiaoyao was here, he would definitely find it funny. The creatures of the other territory were Li Jiuyi, Pu Yarrow, Jin Zhon, and the other heavenly king prodigies. The two sides clashed. Chapter 980. The evil eye's beam was extremely powerful. Princess Longji and the other 2 hurriedly dodged and revealed themselves. It's you, Tian Kanzi, who had a head of purple hair and was emitting the aura of a supremacy, relaxed slightly when he saw Princess Longji and the others. If it was the reinforcements from the other side, it would be troublesome. After all, his enemies were already very troublesome. The 10 heavenly king-level prodigies of the other side were as weak as chickens and dogs in front of Jun Xiaoyao. But that was only relative. To the prodigies of the immortal region, they were definitely strong opponents. Especially Li Jiuyi, although his cultivation was only at the quasi-supremacy level. There was a gap between him and supremacy Tian Kanzi. But Li Jiuyi had the evil eye of the infernal emperor race and the support of the quasi-emperor weapon, the Eye of Despair. For a moment, Tian Kanzi and Li Jiuyi were evenly matched. Not to mention, the creatures of the other side were naturally several times stronger than the creatures of the immortal region of the same level. That was why Li Jiuyi could use the Eye of Despair to fight against the divine Silkworm Valley's seed-level prodigy, Tian Kanzi. As for Pu Yarrow, Jin Zhon, Jiu Kai, and the 2-headed god race prodigy, they were fighting against Ji Qingyi, Sun Shenghu, and Moon Shenghu. The leader of the 10 heavenly kings, Prince Nirvana, was not present. Seeing Princess Longji, Yu Chanhuan, and Yang Rumeng appear, Sun Shenghu and Moon Shenghu looked at each other. Sun Shenghu and Moon Shenghu looked at each other. Their eyes were flickering under their masks. They had some thoughts in their hearts. As for Ji Qingyi, her face under the veil was extremely calm. No one could guess what she was thinking. It could be said that she was smooth and slick, making it difficult for others to fathom. The 3 of you, the enemy is right in front of us. Let's deal with these creatures of the other side first, Ji Qingyi said. She did not have any ill feelings towards Ji Qingyi, Princess Longji, and Moon Shenghu. It was just that Yu Chanhuan was a little unhappy with Sun Shenghu and Moon Shenghu. However, the enemy was right in front of them, and they should put aside their previous grudges for the time being. Princess Longji and Moon Shenghu joined the battle. They're not even quasi-supremacies. They're just serving themselves. The seed-level prodigies of the immortal region are nothing. Li Jiui looked at Tian Kanzi with a mocking look. The confidence that he had lost from Jun Xiaoyaro was regained from Tian Kanzi. I'm just warming up. Tian Kanzi's eyes were cold. In any case, he was still a seed-level character in the Divine Silkworm Valley and was once one of the 9 transformations celestial silkworms. Just a little more and he would be invincible in the 10 transformations. Tian Kanzi had always been searching for a way to transform 10 times. Some time ago, he had sensed that there was a great opportunity in the Heaven Burial Forest. That was why he had rushed over. Then, he met Ji Qingyi and the others. Then, he ran into Li Jiui and the others who had also entered the Heaven Burial Forest to hunt the cultivators of the immortal region. The two sides once again engaged in a fierce battle. Magic power of all colors swept out, and large areas of the ancient forest collapsed. They were already in the depths of the Sky Burial Forest. Cracks appeared on the ground. At this time, in the depths of the Heaven Burial Forest, an ancient city suddenly appeared. Spiritual energy was dense, and immortal light soared into the sky. A majestic ancient city appeared in the depths of the Sky Burial Forest. The prodigies of the immortal region and the other side subconsciously stopped what they were doing and looked over. However, they held their breaths when they saw it. The ancient city was plated with a layer of purple gold, and there were natural great Dao marks on it. That was the material used to forge imperial armaments, divine mark purple gold. Although not the entire ancient city was made of divine mark purple gold. However, even if it was just a layer of divine mark purple gold, the materials needed were enough to forge a complete imperial armament. What kind of wealth is this? The prodigies of the two sides were amazed. There was a shocking aura circulating in the entire ancient city. There were reliefs on the surface, engraved with mountains, rivers, sun, moon, ancient beasts, gods, demons, and other totems. All kinds of runes appeared, and divine chains of laws intertwined. They looked extremely ancient and definitely did not belong to this era. Below the ancient city, there was an ancient formation diagram. Looking at its range, it seemed to cover the entire Heaven Burial Forest from underground. Such a display of wealth was once again shocking. It's that, Tian Kanzi and Yang Ruming's heartstrings moved at the same time. The feeling they had before had originated from that ancient city. As for why only the two of them sensed it, it probably had something to do with the things hidden in the depths of the ancient city. What is that? Li Jiui and the other Heavenly King-level prodigies were also surprised. However, they could vaguely feel that the ancient city gave them an extremely uneasy sense of danger. Dong, dong, dong. Suddenly, a violent tremor came from the depths of the ancient city. It was as if an army of thousands of men and horses stepped out at the same time, and the aura of a golden army spread out. 4 bronze immortal armaments suddenly appeared from the ancient city. These bronze immortal armaments were entirely greenish gold, and they held heavenly spears and other weapons. Supreme runes flowed on their surfaces. Foreign creatures, kill. A heavy and muffled voice came from the bronze immortal armaments. They stepped forward and charged at Li Jiui and the others. Damn it, this is the inheritance left behind by a great figure of the immortal region. Retreat. When Li Jiui saw this, his eyelids twitched. The desolate border was too large. Since ancient times, who knew how many experts of the two worlds had fallen here? The great sacrificial blood ground was rumored to be a dangerous forbidden land formed after the death of a top foreign king. Therefore, it was not surprising that there were treasures left behind by a powerful ancestor of the immortal region here. Seeing Li Jiui and the others retreat, Tian Kanzi laughed loudly. The heavens are helping me. He turned and looked at the ancient city with blazing eyes. They had a premonition that there would be an opportunity for him to transform. He might be able to use this opportunity to transform into a 10 transformations invincible divine silkworm. Tian Kanzi turned into a stream of light and was about to enter the ancient city. Ji Qingyi's eyes flashed, and she also entered. The Sun Saint Protection and Moon Saint Protection did the same. Let's go too. Yang Rumeng bit her plump red lips. She also felt that there was a great opportunity inside. They all entered the ancient city. On the other side, Li Jiuyi and the others, who were being chased by the 4 bronze immortal armaments, were in a sorry state. These bronze immortal armaments were invulnerable and had supreme runes flowing on their surfaces. Li Jiuyi and the others could not stop them at all. Soon, a heavenly king-tier prodigy fell. On the other side, there was a figure wearing a ghost mask, dressed in white, and surrounded by a chaotic aura. Like a divine king crossing a realm, he crossed the void with his hands behind his back. The surrounding forest, ferocious beasts, and broken arrays were all scattered by the chaotic aura around him. This figure was naturally Jun Xiaoyao, who had entered the sky burial forest. Suddenly, there was a commotion in front of him. Jun Xiaoyao looked over and saw Li Jiuyi and the others fleeing in a sorry state. It's you. Seeing Jun Xiaoyao, Li Jiuyi, Pu Yaro, Jin Zhon, and the others' expressions were very unnatural. He never expected Jun Xiaoyao to see him in such a sorry state. However, they were now in danger, and they could only temporarily put their previous unpleasantness with Jun Xiaoyao to the back of their minds. They also knew that although Jun Xiaoyao was a quasi-supreme, he was an absolute powerhouse even among supremes. Prince Mo Jie was nailed to death by Jun Xiaoyao's halberd. Yu Xiaoyao, we found an opportunity in the immortal domain, but we are being chased by a puppet. Help us get rid of this puppet first, and then we will fight for that opportunity, Li Jiuyi said. Although he was reluctant, he could only do so. Jun Xiaoyao looked at Li Jiuyi and the others with interest. For some reason, when he felt this gaze, Li Jiuyi's heart suddenly sank. Jun Xiaoyao raised his hand, and a dazzling sword light rushed into the sky. A 3-foot-long sword embryo appeared, and with the chaotic power, it activated the heaven-severing art and slashed at Li Jiuyi and the others. Yu Xiaoyao, how dare you? Seeing this scene, Li Jiuyi's eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he shouted. Chapter 981. Li Jiuyi had a premonition that even if Jun Xiaoyao did not help him, he would at most ignore him. But if that was the case, Li Jiuyi would also think of luring the bronze immortal weapon to Jun Xiaoyao. Who would have thought that Jun Xiaoyao was even more ruthless and attacked them directly? The incomparably thick sword light came crashing down from the sky like a mountain, majestic and mighty. With the support of the power of primal chaos, this sword light seemed to cut through the chaotic universe with astonishing power. The other 10 heavenly king-level prides, such as Pu Yaro, Jin Zhon, Jiyu Kai, and the 2-headed divine race prides, were all killed. Under this sword light, their physical bodies were all shattered. They could not even send a message. Moreover, the desolate border was chaotic and it was not that easy to send a message. In just a short moment, only Li Jiuyi was left alive among these heavenly king-level prides. The reason he could survive was because he blocked the sword light with his quasi-emperor weapon, the Eye of Despair. Jun Xiaoyao's face was cold as he attacked again with the everlasting sword embryo. Xiaoyao, you are crazy. Even if we have a grudge, we are now training in the desolate border. We are all from the same world. Li Jiuyi shouted angrily. Who is from the same world as you? Jun Xiaoyao chuckled with a touch of sarcasm. Li Jiuyi's face immediately froze. He felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured all the way down his spine. It chilled his heart. You. Li Jiuyi could not believe it. Jun Xiaoyao stepped on the Kuan Peng and landed beside Li Jiuyi in an instant. A voice sounded faintly. My surname is Jun. These 3 words almost froze Li Jiuyi's soul. Jun Xiaoyao, no, this is impossible. Li Jiuyi was horrified as he looked at Jun Xiaoyao, who was wearing a ghost mask in front of him, and felt a chill run down his spine. Wasn't he hiding it too deeply? How did he hide it so well? Li Jiuyi hurriedly took out a jade slip from his spatial artifact, wanting to send a message. Pucci. The everlasting sword embryo directly pierced through Li Jiuyi's head and destroyed his primordial spirit. Li Jiuyao had fallen. Jun Xiaoyao then swung the everlasting sword embryo at the quasi-emperor weapon, the Eye of Despair. Instantly, the Eye of Despair shattered. Its essence was absorbed by the everlasting sword embryo. On the surface of the sword embryo, the blurry flying immortal pattern seemed to have become clearer. Unfortunately, Prince Bian isn't here. Jun Xiaoyaro shook his head slightly. Then, with a casual wave of his hand, the Tu-Shi ancient emperor flame appeared and burned all of the corpses into nothingness. Out of the 10 heavenly king-level geniuses, only Prince Bian was left. At this moment, 4 azure gold figures charged over like cannonballs. They were none other than the 4 bronze immortal soldiers that were chasing after the foreign creatures. A supreme being level puppet. No wonder it's being hunted down. Seems like that place of fortune is quite interesting. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled. The everlasting sword embryo in his hand slashed out. As for the others, even if they were immortal domains seed-level supreme beings, or foreign emperor clan's young supreme beings, they were all extremely powerful. If they encountered these 4 bronze immortal soldiers, they would be badly battered and might even retreat. But Jun Xiaoyaro didn't fear them at all. He could even kill one of the 7 minor emperors, Prince Mo Jie, with a single strike. Dealing with these supreme being puppets that didn't have any intelligence and only knew how to use brute force was naturally extremely easy. He didn't even need to use the god's weeping war halberd, directly using the everlasting sword embryo to slash out. Chaotic energy poured down like a waterfall. The everlasting sword embryo's radiance was dazzling. It was unknown what material this everlasting sword embryo was made of, but it was even harder than divine iron and immortal gold. Soon, the 4 bronze immortal soldiers were all killed. Jun Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, headed toward the purple gold ancient city. Meanwhile, on this side, Princess Longji and the others had already pushed open the ancient city's gates and entered. As far as the eye could see, the city walls towered high, made of bronze everywhere. It looked like a city made of metal. Princess Longji, Tian Kanzi, Ji Qingyi, and the others who entered were all observing. However, they maintained a subtle distance between each other. Ji Qingyi, Sun Saint Protector, and Moon Saint Protector could be considered one faction. Princess Longji, Yu Chanhuan, and Yang Rumeng were one faction. Tian Kanzi was one faction by himself. Of course, Tian Kanzi's cultivation was at the supreme being level, and he was the strongest, so he had nothing to worry about. Which lord left behind this dojo? Tian Kanzi muttered to himself. When Qingyi walked in earlier, she saw many primitive demon beast totems carved on the city walls. It shouldn't be the legacy of a human cultivator. It could be Archean royalty, a primordial monster, or a demon legacy, Ji Qingyi said faintly. Miss Qingyi is indeed smart. Tian Kanzi was also surprised. He didn't expect Ji Qingyi to be so observant. On the other side, Princess Longji also glanced at Ji Qingyi. She and Jun Xiaoyaro were from the same generation. Many prodigies back then had died, but Ji Qingyi had survived until now, and her status and strength had only increased. This girl is definitely not simple. Princess Longji and the other 2 were all wary. The 3 factions all had their own plans. They continued forward, going deep into the ancient city. In the center of the city, mist surged, and divine light lingered. Divine chains of various laws intertwined in the void, creating a shocking scene. Everyone couldn't help but rush forward. There was a pool in front of them. However, it wasn't made of pure water, but was filled with rich spiritual qi and the power of laws. This was a pool of laws. Everyone immediately thought of the ancient array under the ancient city. Perhaps that was its purpose. Is something brewing here? Ji Qingyi pondered. Then, the crowd saw a blood-colored spiritual herb in the pond. There was a miniature 10,000 spirit shadow on it, turning into mist and water vapor. The power of laws intertwined. 10,000 spirit blood medicine. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat. This was a peerless treasure that contained the ultimate power of laws, and this kind of power of laws was very helpful for breaking through to the paragon level and becoming a real paragon. Everyone's breathing quickened slightly. Only Tian Kanzi and Yang Rumeng were slightly confused. They looked around as if they were looking for something. Suddenly, they both noticed something. There seemed to be a tiny light spot floating on the surface of the pool of laws. At a closer look, it was a purple gold cocoon. The purple gold cocoon was only the size of a pinky finger. It was very inconspicuous. That was why no one noticed it. This is, Tian Kanzi and Yang Rumeng held their breaths. One of them was Tian Kanzi from the celestial silkworm valley, while the other was a skydream butterfly. To some extent, they were part of a big clan. That was why Yuan Kanzi from the celestial silkworm valley coveted Yang Rumeng so much. A divine demonic ant. Tian Kanzi almost stopped breathing. Yang Rumeng also revealed a shocked expression. The other geniuses also noticed it, and they were all shocked. What was a divine demonic ant? It was an existence that was ranked as the strongest divine beast of the ancient era, along with the true dragon, godly phoenix, 9 serenities Ao, Kuan Peng, and other powerful races. It might only be an ant, but its strength was shocking. It was said to have mastered the law of the extreme realm of force. Even the sacred body of the ancients, which was known for its physical strength, was slightly weaker than the divine demonic ant in terms of absolute strength. There was a saying about this clan in the 9 heavens immortal realm. An ant is comparable to a divine demon. Chapter 982. No one had expected that they would be able to find traces of the divine demonic ants. Compared to other primordial ferocious beasts such as true dragons and godly phoenixes, the divine demonic ants were too rare. Although they were an ant race, they were not like ordinary ants who only had one nest. The more powerful the bloodline, the harder it was to pass it down. For example, true dragons and godly phoenixes were prosperous largely because they intermarried with other races. For example, the dragon race had the ancient Void Dragon tribe, the Dragon King Palace, and the destroyed Zulong tribe. The godly phoenixes also had Demon Phoenix Ancient Cave and other inheritances in the immortal region. The destroyed 10,000 Phoenix Spirit Mountain was one of them. Meanwhile, the divine demonic ants did not intermarry with other races. Not only were they few in number, but it was also difficult for them to reproduce. In the previous war between the two worlds, the divine demonic ants had done their best and made great contributions. There was once a divine demonic ant emperor who tore apart a foreign immortal king. In the end, he was killed by a foreign calamity-grade forbidden existence. It could be said that this race was both glorious and tragic. It really is the divine demonic ants. Sun Shenghu and Moon Shenghu's breathing quickened. Let's not talk about anything else. The first thing they thought of was the divine demonic ant's great strength ability. This was a top-notch divine ability that was on par with the true dragon divine ability, the Kuan Peng divine ability, and the lightning emperor divine ability. If they could control the divine demonic strength ability, they might be able to control the law of force. This was equivalent to obtaining an additional law for no reason. What was the competition in the prime stage? It was the number of laws and the understanding of the laws. If they could control 9 laws, they would be able to ascend to the paramount stage. That would be almost invincible among primes. If we can get the divine demonic ants and offer them to Sir, Sun Shenghu and Moon Shenghu's minds became active. If their chaos physique Sir could get the divine demonic ants, he would be even happier than if he got Yu Chanhuan. Not to mention, if he could get a divine demonic ant as a follower, he would definitely become an invincible battle servant in the future. Of course, those elders at the immortal region border would not let the divine demonic ants become anyone's servants. Because this clan's contributions were too great, if the group of elders knew that this clan still had descendants, they would definitely be extremely excited and moved. Sun Shenghu and Moon Shenghu weren't the only ones who had their eyes on the divine demonic ants. Ji Qingyi's eyes flashed, but she did not reveal anything. Tian Kanzi's breathing quickened. He finally understood why he had such a feeling. Heavenly silkworms, godfiend ants, and skydream butterflies, strictly speaking, all belonged to the same category. Therefore, there was a subtle sense of opportunity. If I can obtain the celestial demon ant's celestial demon great strength divine art, I might be able to reflect its technique and transform into a 10 transformations celestial silkworm. Even with Tian Kanzi's temperament, he couldn't help but feel a little excited. As for Yang Rumeng, she also understood. The divine demonic ant and her true form, the skydream bewitching butterfly, were of the same species. That was why they could sense each other's presence. Are you Meng? This opportunity should be very suitable for you. If you can obtain the essence of the divine demon ant race, you will definitely transform, said Yu Chanhuan. During this period of time, they had become good sisters. But Yang Rumeng glanced at Tian Kanzi. This fortuitous encounter was not easy to obtain. For a moment, the atmosphere fell into an eerie silence. It was Ji Qingyi who broke the silence. I didn't expect to find divine demonic ants here. It seems like this purple gold ancient city was left behind by the ancestors of the divine demonic ant race. These divine demonic ants are very useful to me, said Tian Kanzi directly. He was a seed-level prodigy from the celestial Silkworm Valley, a supreme being. His cultivation base was the highest here. Ji Qingyi, Sun Shenghu, and Moon Shenghu were all quasi-supreme. Of course, only Ji Qingyi herself would know if her cultivation base and strength were compatible. As for Princess Longji and the others, they were naturally at a disadvantage. However, the three girls were very smart. They knew what they were qualified to obtain and what they weren't. We're not greedy for these divine demonic ants. Let's explore other places in the ancient city, said Princess Longji calmly. Although she had obtained the nine-finger sage dragon emperor's inheritance, she was still a latecomer. Her foundation was still too shallow. Compared to the current supreme outlawed prodigies, there was still a gap. Not to mention the seed-level prodigies. Yang Rumeng did not say much. Although she was a little envious of the divine demonic ants, she knew that she could not win against Tian Kanzi. However, a cold voice caused the hearts of the three women to sink. Wait, Yu Chanhuan. I've given you a choice in the Immortal Academy. Now, I'll give you another chance. The one who spoke was Sun Shenghu. Yu Chanhuan's pretty face was extremely cold. It was Jun Xiaoyao who saved her from the darkness. Her body and soul belonged to Jun Xiaoyao. Even if she took a step back and Jun Xiaoyao really died, she would not have any relationship with him. Yu Chanhuan would never have a relationship with any other man in her life. She would only do her best to help the Jun family and the imperial court. Sun Shenghu wanted her to follow the chaos physique. That was ridiculous. I won't repeat what I've already said Yu Chanhuan indifferently. Sun Shenghu chuckled and did not care. Instead, he looked at Tian Kanzi. Your Excellency Tian Kanzi, I'm sure you've heard that Jun Xiaoyao killed your clan's Yuan Kanzi Daozi. He even suppressed the divine silkworm princess of the divine Silkworm Valley and made her the maid of the Jiang family's goddess, Jiang Shengyi. Aren't you going to settle this score? Shameless. Yang Rumeng raised her eyebrows and widened her eyes when she heard that. Sun Shenghu was trying to get Tian Kanzi to go against them. As expected, Tian Kanzi's expression changed slightly. It was not that he was instigated by Sun Shenghu. As a seed-level prodigy, no one would have such a bad temperament. However, Tian Kanzi remembered that Yang Rumeng's original body was the Sky Dream butterfly. If he could get it and add the divine demonic ants, the possibility of him transforming into a 10 transformation celestial silkworm was 70% to 80%. After all, the Sky Dream butterfly was an existence on par with the immemorial Emperor butterfly and the crack demonic butterfly. Yang Rumeng was not very powerful because her bloodline awakened late. She had to rely on Jun Xiaoyao's help to awaken her bloodline. At that thought, Tian Kanzi glanced at Yang Rumeng again. Her face was as flawless as jade. She was as beautiful as a flower and as beautiful as the moon. Her features were exquisite and beautiful. Under her pink dress, her slender and round legs were very eye-catching. She was such a beautiful woman with exceptional looks, bloodline, and talent. It would not be a loss to have her as a wife. Yang Rumeng, do you need to comprehend the secret of the divine demonic ants? I can share it with you, Tian Kanzi said. No need. Yang Rumeng rejected decisively. She was disgusted by the way Tian Kanzi sized her up. I'm just being nice. You can't reject me. Tian Kanzi took half a step forward. Sun Shenghu sneered and took a step forward with Moon Shenghu. On the other hand, Ji Qingyi remained calm and watched from the sidelines. Aren't you afraid of the Jun family, the Emperor's court, and the Demon God Palace? Princess Longji's hair fluttered in the wind. Her eyes were cold. Jun Xiaoyao might have disappeared, but the power behind him did not. Why are you so stubbornly following someone who has already become a thing of the past? If I had been born earlier, Jun Xiaoyao might not be as famous as he is now. Tian Kanzi reached out, wanting to suppress Yang Rumeng. Sun Shenghu and Moon Shenghu also attacked, wanting to capture Yu Chanhuan. How dare you? Compared to Master, you are nothing, Princess Longji scolded. Princess Longji, I think you've lost your mind. You've disgraced the Archean royalty, Tian Kanzi said coldly, raising his hand to suppress her. At that moment, rumble. The entire purple-gold ancient city suddenly began to tremble, as if some ferocious demon had broken through and entered. In the distance, vast and mighty chaotic chi surged, and it crushed over like tidewater. Seeing this, Sun Shenghu instinctively revealed a look of joy. But just as he was about to greet Master, he suddenly realized that Master had not come out of the door of chaos yet. Then the source of the chaotic chi was, boom. Amidst the chaotic mist that filled the sky, a slender figure wearing a ghost mask appeared. He was dressed in a hazy white robe and was surrounded by chaotic energy. Without another word, he raised his fair and slender palm and slammed it towards Tian Kanzi. Chapter 983. You are. Tian Kanzi was surprised by the sudden appearance of this person. He flipped his palm, and the power of laws was endless. This was one of the divine Silkworm Valley's great abilities, the bone-melting soft palm. However, the white-clothed man with the ghost face only extended his palm in an ordinary manner. Chaotic aura surged and condensed, forming a chaotic palm print. Even the lines on the palm could be seen clearly, as mysterious and profound as the patterns of the stars. Boom! A violent tremor erupted, and the entire ancient city buzzed. If not for the layer of divine mark purple gold covering the entire ancient city, it would probably have been shattered by this attack. Cough. At the center of the collision, it was as if two meteors had collided. The sound of bones cracking and blood coughing could be heard. Tian Kanzi was sent flying like a cannonball, and blood splattered in the air. How is this possible? The Sun and Moon Saint Protectors were both shocked. Tian Kanzi was a seed-level prodigy who had awakened from a deep slumber. He was already a supreme the moment he was born. He could be considered one of the top young primes in the celestial realm. But now, he was sent flying by a single palm. Even if their lord came out, it would take him 3 or 4 moves to suppress Tian Kanzi. You're only a quasi-supreme, but you can injure me. Plus, you have the chaotic body. You're the one with the chaotic body from the other domain. Tian Kanzi couldn't help but be shocked. A normal quasi-supreme attacking him was undoubtedly courting death. But now, this mysterious man could easily injure him. In addition, his body was shrouded in chaotic aura. The identity of this person was obvious. The other domain chaotic body, the Ars Academy's war god, and one of the 6 world destruction kings. It's really him. The Sun and Moon Saint Protectors were both terrified. Although their cultivation levels were the same as the chaotic body in front of them, they were all quasi-supreme. But they felt that if the chaotic body wanted to kill them, one move would be too much. Previously, they were still a little disdainful, thinking that the other domain chaotic body was fake or an inferior postnatal chaotic body. Now, it seemed that their thoughts were indeed extremely laughable. Ji Qingyi's clear eyes looked at Jun Xiaoyao and frowned slightly. That figure, dressed in white, always made her unconsciously think of a certain figure. How could such a thing happen? Ji Qingyi shook her head, thinking that it was just her subconscious imagination. There were many people in the world who wore white, and it was not exclusive to one person. He is, Princess Longji, Yu Chanhuan, and Yang Rumeng were also stunned. To be honest, they had also thought that they had seen that familiar figure at a certain moment, and they had almost cried out in joy. However, the misty primal chaos chi and the grimacing mask on his face told them that was just an illusion. Attack together. Tian Kanzi's expression was unprecedentedly serious. He would never have thought that he would feel such pressure when facing a quasi-supreme being. Sun Saint Protector and Moon Saint Protector were the same. On the other side, Jun Xiaoyao glanced at the scene under the mask. He didn't expect to run into these familiar faces. However, he had also noticed that Princess Longji and the others were not on good terms with Tian Kanzi's people. While Jun Xiaoyaro was unable to openly lend a helping hand, he was still able to get rid of those troublemakers. Kill. Tian Kanzi's voice was filled with killing intent. He was still ambitious. If he could kill this foreign chaotic body with his own hands, what kind of rewards and glory would he receive? If they were both supremes, Tian Kanzi would not even think about it. He would just run away. Fortunately, he was a quasi-supreme. Tian Kanzi thought that he still had a chance. Sun Saint Protector and Moon Saint Protector attacked at the same time. Ji Qingyi thought for a moment, then attacked as well. She was a little curious. As for Princess Longji's side, the three girls were slightly dazed. Because that blurry figure surrounded by primal chaos chi was indeed similar to that person. However, just a chaotic body was enough to stop the three girls from having such ridiculous thoughts. Let's retreat first. Yang Rumeng whispered to the two girls, who were slightly dazed. Princess Longji and Yu Chanhuan finally regained their senses. They took a deep look at the white-robed figure, then turned and retreated, leaving the purple-gold ancient city. On the other side, the battle had begun. Sensing that Princess Longji and the others had left, Jun Xiaoyaro secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that these three girls would be stubborn and attack him. That would be inconvenient. Fortunately, they were all smart girls and knew how to judge the situation. Divine Silkworm Sealing Sky Technique. Tian Kanzi used the Divine Silkworm Valley's top divine ability. Tens of thousands of power of laws behind him turned into silk-like threads, surging toward Jun Xiaoyaro in an overwhelming manner. This secret technique of the Divine Silkworm Valley was said to be able to seal the sky and the earth. It could seal the enemy in a cocoon of laws and then refine them. From this move, it could be seen that Tian Kanzi's use of the power of laws was already very exquisite. Sun Saint Protector and Moon Saint Protector attacked as well. As followers of the immortal realm chaotic body, their talents and strength were naturally not ordinary. They were much more powerful than the Star Saint Protector. At this moment, the two of them used their strongest moves. One of them waved his fist, carrying with it a radiance as bright as the sun. The other held a curved blade in his hand, and a 1,000-feet-long moon-white blade shot out, tearing through the void. Ji Qingyi also attacked. She waved her jade-like palm, and its power was about the same as the two Saint Protectors. Seeing this, Jun Xiaoyaro formed the Mountain Moving Seal. This was one of the moves that he had comprehended from the War God Catalogue. Although it was not an earth-shattering divine ability, in Jun Xiaoyao's hands, it could turn something rotten into something magical. Not to mention, there was the support of the chaotic power, making this move, which was not weak to begin with, even more powerful. Rumble. Jun Xiaoyao's seal crushed over, sending Ji Qingyi, Sun Saint Protector, and Moon Saint Protector flying. Ji Qingyi was fine, but her face under the veil was slightly pale. Sun Saint Protector and Moon Saint Protector both spat out blood, and their bones cracked. They were instantly severely injured. At this moment, Tian Kanzi's ultimate move had already enveloped them. Countless threads condensed from the power of laws intertwined around Jun Xiaoyaro, flashing with runes. They instantly turned into a cocoon of laws, wrapping Jun Xiaoyaro within. Refine. Tian Kanzi shouted. Dharmic energy surged, and various runes and divine chains intertwined in the void. They even turned into nomological Dao fire, roasting the cocoon of laws. It was clear that Tian Kanzi, as a seed-level prodigy of the celestial realm, had some skills. It was not without reason that these seed-level prodigies could dominate their eras. So what if you have the chaotic body? Tian Kanzi's face showed a hint of joy. If he could extract the chaotic blood and chaotic origin from it, then his chances of transforming into a 10 transformations celestial silkworm would be almost 100%. However, just as Tian Kanzi was indulging in his dream, rip, a dazzling sword light tore through the cocoon of laws. Even the void was shattered and pierced through. A dazzling and extremely fast sword light instantly pierced through Tian Kanzi's forehead. Before he could even react, his primordial spirit had already shattered into nothingness. A seed-level prodigy of the celestial realm, Tian Kenzi, had fallen. Chapter 984. Tian Kanzi's body fell from the sky. There was a sword mark between his eyebrows. Looking inside, his entire brain had been shattered into nothingness, and his primordial spirit had long disappeared. However, his head remained intact. It was obvious that Zhang Xiaoyao's understanding of the sword Dao had reached an extremely profound level. However, it made sense. Zhang Xiaoyao had mastered 4 of the sword Dao's 5 divine arts. His swordsmanship must be profound. How is this possible? Sun Shenghu and Moon Shenghu felt chills down their spines. This was a supreme being seedling. Even if it was their master, it was impossible for him to kill them so cleanly, right? Thinking of this, their hearts sank. They were scared out of their wits and wanted to retreat. However, Zhang Xiaoyao wouldn't give them the chance to do so. He threw out a punch, his dharmic power surging. A thick ancient tablet appeared in the void, as if it had the power to suppress the heavens. This was also one of the moves in the God of War catalogue, the Battle Tablet Hand. Splat! Sun Shenghu and Moon Shenghu were suppressed by the ancient tablet. Like ants, their bodies exploded and their primordial spirits shattered. At this point, the Sun Shenghu, Moon Shenghu, and Star Shenghu under the immortal realm chaotic body had all died. They had completely offended the immortal realm chaotic body. However, Zhang Xiaoyao didn't care. It started when Star Shenghu instigated the gatekeeper's family to kidnap Yu Chanhuan. Zhang Xiaoyao and the immortal realm chaotic body had already formed a grudge. In the end, only Ji Qingyi was left. Princess Longji and the other 2 had already left the purple gold ancient city. Ji Qingyi frowned as she faced Zhang Xiaoyao alone. Her expression was grim. The more she looked at the blurry figure in the chaos, the more she felt like it was someone. In addition, Ji Qingyi was smart and shrewd. Therefore, she thought more than the others. Do you know Zhang Xiaoyao, the alien chaotic body? Ji Qingyi suddenly asked. At the same time, she locked her gaze on Zhang Xiaoyao, trying to detect the subtle changes in him. Woman, Zhang Xiaoyao sighed. Ji Qingyi was testing him. He had seen Ji Qingyi for the first time in the Huangtian mystic realm. He felt that this woman's thoughts were extremely deep and extraordinary. Many geniuses who appeared at the same time in the Huangtian mystic realm had already died. Ji Qingyi, on the other hand, was able to live on peacefully. Furthermore, she was doing even better than before. This was enough to prove the woman's scheming. However, this kind of scheming needs to be taught a lesson. In the face of absolute strength, any scheming will seem pale and laughable. Zhang Xiaoyao sneered in his heart before he struck. Vast and mighty chaotic qi filled the void. He attacked Ji Qingyi. It just so happened that he could use his identity as an alien chaotic body to test Ji Qingyi's limits. After all, Ji Qingyi had never offended him in the celestial realm. He even expressed his goodwill to Zhang Xiaoyao and said that he wanted to be friends. Therefore, at that time, Zhang Xiaoyao could not casually attack Ji Qingyi. Now that he had this layer of armor, he could make a move to test the waters. Just how deep were Ji Qingyi's waters? Seeing that Zhang Xiaoyao ignored her, she directly attacked. Ji Qingyi raised her eyebrows. She had no choice but to attack. Her jade-like palms slapped out, causing the heavenly wind to dance. At the same time, she used some kind of secret technique. Her strength rose steadily until it was close to that of a perfected quasi-supreme. One had to know that among the 7th-level supremes, secret techniques that could raise one's strength in a short period of time were extremely rare. However, Ji Qingyi had mastered one. Boom! The 2 of them collided. Ji Qingyi retreated step by step, feeling as if she was being crushed by an ancient beast. As expected of the chaotic body, Ji Qingyi sighed. However, Zhang Xiaoyao was surprised. When Ji Qingyi attacked with the others just now, her strength was about the same as that of the sacred protector of sun and sacred protector of moon. Now that she was alone, her strength had risen to such a terrifying level that she could take Zhang Xiaoyao's attack head-on. Let me see how many more secrets you have. Zhang Xiaoyao was getting more and more interested. His figure flashed, broke through space, and suppressed Ji Qingyi again. Ji Qingyi secretly bit her lip. Even though she was thinking about Linglong, she was extremely shrewd. However, in the face of absolute strength, any schemes were useless. In just a few rounds, Ji Qingyi retreated step by step, blood flowing from the corner of her lips. Is this your true strength? It's stronger than I thought, but it's still not enough. Zhang Xiaoyao thought to himself. Suddenly, just when Ji Qingyi was at her weakest, a cold light flashed across her clear eyes. An illusory Dao diagram rushed out of her delicate body and suppressed Zhang Xiaoyao. That Dao diagram was very illusory. It was not a physical object, but an imprint. There were images of immortals and demons carved on it. Immortals and demons filled the sky. Two completely opposite scenes appeared on the same diagram. A terrifying aura that could suppress demons and seal immortals was released. Immortal artifact imprint. Zhang Xiaoyao was truly astonished. He was very surprised. Immortal artifacts were extremely rare. They were much more precious than emperor weapons. Most immortal forces had emperor weapons. However, there were not many forces that had immortal artifacts. Zhang Xiaoyao did not know whether the Zhang family had one or not, and he had never asked. However, the most famous force was the Supreme Xian Ting. It once had an immortal artifact and the throne of the Celestial Emperor, but it was later lost. In the end, Ling Yang obtained the imprint of the Celestial Emperor's throne. However, the problem was that it was the Supreme Xian Ting. It was normal for him to have an immortal artifact. However, Ji Qingyi was able to obtain an immortal artifact imprint alone. She had hidden it very well. It was no wonder that Ji Qingyi did not panic when facing him. Immortal demon diagram, suppress, Ji Qingyi yelled. Although it was only an immortal artifact imprint, its power was extremely strong. The entire purple gold ancient palace buzzed. Even though it was covered by the divine mark purple gold, it almost cracked. Did Ji Qingyi obtain some kind of inheritance, or did she know some kind of big secret? Zhang Xiaoyao increasingly felt that Ji Qingyi was not simple. Not everyone could have an immortal artifact. It either came from a powerful force, or it was the inheritance of a top legend. Zhang Xiaoyao knew that this was definitely not an immortal artifact from the Ji family or the human immortal sect. Rumble. The immortal demon diagram imprint pressed down mightily. It was as if the heavens were about to collapse. Anything that was related to immortals was not simple. Even if it was just an immortal artifact imprint, its power was extremely strong. Ji Qingyi's face was pale. Even if it was just an immortal artifact imprint, it would take some effort for her to activate it. Even if a real immortal artifact was placed in front of her, it would be difficult for ordinary cultivators to use it. They might even suffer a backlash. Zhang Xiaoyao didn't panic when he saw what was happening. He casually took out a dark golden halberd from his spatial Dharma artifact. Instantly, a fierce battle intent and demonic aura spread in all directions. The dark golden halberd was 7 feet long, and its blade glowed with dark golden light. Blood veins wriggled on the halberd as if they were alive. They turned into blood vessels and pierced into Zhang Xiaoyao's arm. The dark golden halberd seemed to have awakened. It emitted a demonic aura that was unparalleled and domineering. Zhang Xiaoyao's black hair instantly turned snow white. He held the god's tear halberd and slashed at the immortal demon diagram. Chapter 985. As an immortal artifact, the immortal demon painting's power was undeniable. But the god's weeping battle halberd was no ordinary item. The fact that it was the weapon of the first god of war was enough to prove its value. Zhang Xiaoyao had a feeling that the god's weeping battle halberd was somehow related to the secret of the 6 apocalyptic kings. A demonic weapon of this level could not be destroyed easily, even by an immortal artifact. Zhang Xiaoyao waved the god's weeping battle halberd, and the sharp edge of the halberd cracked the void. The dark golden halberd light carried a supreme demonic aura that could split the heavens. Boom! It was as if thousands of stars had exploded at the same time. The ripples of dharmic powers caused the entire purple gold ancient palace to shake violently. Amid the explosion, Ji Qing's body trembled. Ji Qingyi's delicate body trembled. The recoil caused her to spit out a mouthful of blood, dyeing her snow-white veil red. Even Ji Qingyi, who had always been meticulous, revealed a look of shock. She had pretended to be weak just to numb her opponent and then use the immortal demon painting to suppress him. Even if it could not kill the chaotic body, it could at least injure him and buy time for her to retreat. Who would have thought that her opponent would have such a powerful demonic weapon? The weapon is never the most important thing. It also depends on who is using it. Zhun Xiaoyao's voice was low and magnetic. The immortal artifact was indeed powerful, but it also depended on who was using it. If Zhun Xiaoyao used it, it would be even more powerful. Zhun Xiaoyao took advantage of the situation and used the god's weeping battle halberd to resist the suppression of the immortal demon painting. At the same time, he used his hand to suppress Ji Qingyi. Finally, he used his hand to grab Ji Qingyi's snow-white neck. The scene was silent. "It's over," Zhun Xiaoyao said. Ji Qingyi's eyes flashed as she put the immortal artifact back into her body. Zhun Xiaoyao also put away the god's weeping battle halberd. He only needed to use a little more force to crush Ji Qingyi's throat and shatter her primordial spirit. It could be said that Ji Qingyi's life and death depended on Zhun Xiaoyao's decision. "I lost," Ji Qingyi said calmly. However, Zhun Xiaoyao did not let go. Ji Qingyi's schemes were too deep. That move from the immortal demon diagram could seriously injure ordinary seed-level prodigies if they weren't careful. Only Zhun Xiaoyao had absolute confidence in his own strength and could deal with any unexpected situation. "Why are you still wearing the blood-stained veil?" With his other hand, Zhun Xiaoyao tore off Ji Qingyi's veil. Instantly, she revealed a peerless face that made the world pale in comparison. Her face was like the bright moon, her eyes were like autumn ripples, her lips were pearly white, and her teeth were like snow carved from jade. Such beauty was rarely seen in the world. It was no wonder that she had to wear a veil. Otherwise, wherever she went, many men would lose their minds. At this moment, Ji Qingyi's blood-stained lips made her look even more pitiful. If it were any other man, they might not be able to bear to do it. Under the ghost mask, Zhun Xiaoyao's eyes had not changed from the beginning to the end. This was not the first time he had seen Ji Qingyi's true appearance under her veil. Previously, Ji Qingyi had appeared on the ancient road's 70th checkpoint, the Desolate Star. She had taken the initiative to remove her veil, saying that she had only shown her face to Zhun Xiaoyao. As for Zhun Xiaoyao, he did not have any feelings for Ji Qingyi. He did not like or dislike her. People like Ji Qingyi would have been called scheming bitches in his previous life. However, as long as she did not scheme against Zhun Xiaoyao would not kill Ji Qingyi. That would be meaningless. On the other hand, Ji Qingyi had piqued Zhun Xiaoyao's interest. This kind of interest was like the kind of interest one would have when seeing a rare animal and wanting to study it. What other secrets did Ji Qingyi have? "Are you going to kill me?" Ji Qingyi asked. Her tone was as cold and calm as usual, as if she did not realize the current situation. "Do you think I should do this?" Zhun Xiaoyao stepped forward and pinched Ji Qingyi's snow-white chin, his body leaning close to hers. He could even faintly feel Ji Qingyi's soft and graceful curves. This caused Ji Qingyi's pale face to turn slightly red. It was a trace of embarrassment. No matter how deep Ji Qingyi's thoughts and schemes were, she was still a woman. After all, she was a woman. Moreover, Ji Qingyi had a bottom line. She would never use her beauty and body as a bargaining chip. In her eyes, almost all men in the world were filthy and stupid. That was why she wore a veil, unwilling to let those lecherous, shameless, and extremely ordinary men peek at her face. Even Ji Daoyi had never seen her face. He could not even get within 3 feet of her. In the end, he had died in Ji Qingyi's hands. Among all the men, Zhun Xiaoyao was the only one who caught her eye and made her see him in a different light. In her eyes, other men were flesh and blood made of mud, while Zhun Xiaoyao was flesh and blood made of water. It was a pity that such a man whom she admired was no longer around. "If you let me go, I can tell you a piece of news," Ji Qingyi said, blinking her eyes. "Oh, what news?" Zhun Xiaoyao asked. "Promise to let me go first," Ji Qingyi said. "That depends on whether your news is valuable or not," Zhun Xiaoyao said. Ji Qingyi was silent for a moment. Then she said, "You are one of the 6 world destruction kings. You are a great threat to the celestial region. You are already on the decapitation guard's must-kill list. In order to kill you, they specially brought the 9th ancient killing formation." Ji Qingyi's words surprised Zhun Xiaoyao, but it was reasonable. Zhun Xiaoyao knew that the celestial region would send people to kill him. What surprised him was that they had even used the 9th ancient killing formation. It was a terrifying offensive formation that had been passed down since the ancient times. It was ranked 9th. The Zhun family's protective formation was the 3rd ancient killing formation. Its power was terrifying. As for the 1st and 2nd killing formations, it was rumored that they had been completely lost. Although the 9th ancient killing formation could not be compared to the 3rd ancient killing formation, it was definitely not weak. Killing a young prodigy was like using a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. It was a waste of talent. "Is this news enough?" Ji Qingyi asked. She did not care what impact it would have on the plan if the news was leaked. As long as she could escape and survive, it was enough. "Heh," Zhun Xiaoyao chuckled. He raised his hand, and the primal chaos aura emanated from his finger. Then, it brushed past Ji Qingyi's beautiful face, leaving behind a mark. Ji Qingyi's body shook. A mark that was difficult to erase was left on her face. To any woman, especially a woman with peerless beauty, this was unacceptable. "This mark contains the power of primal chaos and the laws. Only I can erase it. Remember." Zhun Xiaoyao smiled and let go of Ji Qingyi's neck. This was a warning to Ji Qingyi so that she would not be so arrogant and think that she could scheme against everyone. It was also a psychological pressure to Ji Qingyi. There was no need to beat around the bush when communicating with a woman like Ji Qingyi. It was enough to make her cry and then conquer her. Ji Qingyi's voluptuous breasts rose and fell. She looked deeply at Zhun Xiaoyao and put on a veil again to cover the marks on her face. Then, she turned and flew away. She had completely remembered it. It was hard not to remember it. Zhun Xiaoyao watched as Ji Qingyi left, but he did not mind. He felt that there must be some secrets behind Ji Qingyi. It would not be too late to investigate when he returned to the celestial realm in the future. Then, the next thing is, Zhun Xiaoyao turned and looked at the pool of laws. The pool of laws, the myriad spirit blood herb, and the god fiend, and Zhun Xiaoyao's eyes lit up. Did he strike it rich? Chapter 986. Zhun Xiaoyao had grown up in a clan of the ancients, so he was naturally knowledgeable. He could immediately tell that there was a small figure inside the purple gold cocoon. It should be the legendary god fiend ant. From the outside, it looked like an inconspicuous little ant. However, this race was even rarer than pure-blooded true dragons. It had mastered the laws of strength. It also had the unique god fiend strength superpower. By the way, this race has the god fiend strength superpower. It's comparable to the Kuan Peng superpower and the Lightning Emperor superpower that I control, Zhun Xiaoyao thought. There was something else about the god fiend strength superpower that attracted Zhun Xiaoyao. When this superpower was mastered to the extreme, one could control the laws of strength. If one could master one more law in the celestial stage, they might be much stronger than other celestials. No wonder Tian Kanzi and the others are drooling. Even I'm tempted, Zhun Xiaoyao muttered to himself. He looked at the pool of laws again. A blood-colored spirit medicine floated in it. There were 10,000 spirit phantoms around it. This is the 10,000 spirit blood medicine. Zhun Xiaoyao finally understood why there was a huge ancient array under the purple gold ancient city. It was gathering the blood qi, laws, Dao bones, and other energies of the dead creatures in the sky burial forest. They would gather in the purple gold ancient city and form the pool of laws to nurture the 10,000 spirit blood medicine. It was also providing energy for the small god fiend ant. The pool of laws was equivalent to a nourishment pool. The 10,000 spirit blood medicine was a great supplement. When the small god fiend ant broke out of the cocoon, it could naturally consume it and grow quickly. They really put in a lot of effort. Zhun Xiaoyao had to exclaim. He could feel that the purple gold cocoon contained an extremely pure and surging power. The small god-fiend ant was probably a direct descendant of the arch race. In other words, it was the son of the arch. This was a true sign that his son had the bearing of the arch. The god-fiend ant race has many strong people, but the most famous person in the recent era should be the god-fiend the arch. The god-fiend the arch had participated in the war between the two worlds and was a true hero. More than one immortal king had died in his hands. Finally, he was attacked by a calamity-level undying. Even so, after fighting for a great deal of time, together with several other undying kings surrounding and attacking him, he finally fell. From this, it could be seen how tenacious the vitality of this clan was. If I teach the divine demonic ant the immortality technique in the lifebook, wouldn't it become an unkillable cockroach? Jun Xiaoyaro suddenly thought of this idea and found it interesting. But first, he had to see the attitude of the little divine demon ant. Jun Xiaoyaro had already begun to think. However, he wouldn't accept this divine fiend ant as a follower. After all, he was the descendant of a hero. It was not bad to be his friend or lackey. However, this myriad spirit blood medicine is useful to me. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't stand on ceremony, so he plucked the myriad spirit blood herb and placed it in his inner universe. It was impossible for him to break through to the supremacy stage with just the heavenly immortal fruit. The 10,000 spirit blood medicine just so happened to solve the urgent problem. Forget it, I won't take advantage of you. Jun Xiaoyaro thought for a moment, then reached out his finger. Immediately, a drop of chaos blood appeared. It wasn't just a drop of blood. It was a drop of chaos blood that was forced out of his heart. Just this drop of chaos blood essence was worth more than the myriad spirit blood medicine. The chaos blood dripped onto the purplish gold cocoon. Surging energy fluctuations began to surge, surging like waves. The energy was like a primordial great evil awakening. But in fact, it was just an ant the size of a pinky finger. Crack. Nourished by the chaos blood, the purplish gold cocoon began to crack. Finally, a small creature crawled out of the cocoon. It was an ant about the size of a pinky finger. It was purplish gold all over as if it was made of immortal gold. It had a total of 6 legs. The 2 at the front were like arms, and it even had palms like a human. It was almost like a human. At the same time, it had a pair of antennae on its head. At that moment, the little divine demon ant seemed to have not figured out what was going on. It touched its antennae with its hands. However, its antennae trembled, and it immediately sensed a dark aura. Foreign creature, die. A tender and clear voice came from the little divine demon ant's mouth. When it saw Jun Xiaoyaro, its eyes immediately turned red, and sparks of hatred shot out. It jumped 3 feet high and threw a punch at Jun Xiaoyaro at an extremely fast speed. He was clearly just a small ant, but the fist he threw out contained the law of force and shattered the void. Supreme Being. Jun Xiaoyaro immediately saw the little divine demon ant's level. Strictly speaking, the little divine demon ant was also a seedling that had been asleep for a long time. Not to mention that it was a direct descendant of the arch, so it was normal for it to be a supreme being. Jun Xiaoyaro raised his hand to block it. It could be said that their sizes were not in the same dimension at all. It was a little ridiculous. However, Jun Xiaoyaro felt a crushing force like that of a primordial beast. It was as if he was facing a star-swallowing ancient beast. The power was so overwhelming that it shook the heavens. Fortunately, Jun Xiaoyaro had the chaotic physique, so his body was very strong. Otherwise, if it were any other physique, apart from those in the top 10, the punch would have destroyed them. Probably no physique could withstand it. Chaotic physique. The little divine demon ant was obviously stunned, but it still charged at Jun Xiaoyaro recklessly. Wait, don't be rash. Jun Xiaoyaro wanted to explain. I have nothing to say to you. The little divine demon ant was very agitated. It threw one punch after another, and every punch was extremely dazzling. Its body was also covered in purple gold and crimson blood chi. That was the divine demon ant's force bloodline, which was extremely powerful. Boom, boom, boom. Jun Xiaoyaro and the little ant punched each other. Every punch broke the sound barrier and shattered the void. Jun Xiaoyaro was shocked. He didn't use his full strength, but he had the chaotic physique after all. However, the little ant's strength was not inferior to his at all. No wonder it was a divine demon ant that had mastered the extreme state of force. Wait, I'm not an alien, Jun Xiaoyaro said. He wanted to be honest with the divine demon and don't try to lie to me. My ant sense can sense your dirty and dark energy, the little divine demon ant yelled. Its voice was crisp and tender. The antennae on its head were very sensitive. Jun Xiaoyaro was speechless, but he could understand. After all, its father should be the fallen godfiend emperor. If Jun Xiaoyaro was in the same situation, if his father, Jun Wuhui, had died in the alien realm, he would probably go crazy too. If I were your enemy, I wouldn't use the chaotic essence blood to nourish and wake you up. I would refine you directly. Jun Xiaoyaro sighed. The little divine demon ant was stunned. Only then did it realize. A surge of chaotic energy was nourishing its revived body. It was the chaotic essence blood. Only then did the little divine demon ant stop attacking. Its big eyes were still filled with hostility as it stared at Jun Xiaoyaro. What are you planning? I won't be fooled. The little divine demon ant was very cautious. Chapter 987. Jun Xiaoyaro couldn't help but laugh. This little divine demon ant was definitely not that old. Its mind wasn't fully mature yet. There was a huge gap between it and the other seedlings. However, a young divine demon ant was already so powerful. It was hard to imagine how powerful it would be when it grew up. It wouldn't be weaker than its father. Would you believe me if I said I was a cultivator from the immortal region? Jun Xiaoyaro took off his mask and smiled. Do you think I'm an idiot? The little divine demon ant was still hostile. Sigh. Jun Xiaoyaro shook his head slightly, then took out an image recording orb from his spatial artifact. The image recording orb recorded his step-by-step plan. It was to make it easier to explain in the future. Take a look. Jun Xiaoyaro injected his magic power into the image recording orb. Some scenes immediately appeared. For example, some of Jun Xiaoyao's plans in the heavenly tomb, such as the transformation and reconstruction of his body. There were also scenes of him tricking the foreign creatures. There were also scenes of him preaching. This scene left the little divine demon ant dumbfounded, its face full of shock. You're Jun Xiaoyaro, the son of God of the Jun family of the ancients. The little divine demon ant was a bit speechless. It wasn't an ant of this era, and it didn't know about Jun Xiaoyao's reputation in the immortal region. However, the Jun family of the ancients was an immortal force that had existed in the immortal region for countless eras. Even its father, the divine demon emperor, had told it about it. The Jun family was a big reason why the foreign realm couldn't completely conquer the immortal region. This family's foundation was too deep. They intimidated the entire foreign realm with the power of a single family. One could imagine how terrifying the Jun family was. The divine demon emperor had even warned the little divine demon ant. It must not be an enemy of the Jun family. If the world really changed in the future and the era collapsed. If it followed the Jun family, it might embark on an unprecedented path of transcendence. It was precisely because of the divine demon emperor's repeated warnings that the little divine demon ant remembered deeply. Is this all true? You're really the son of God of the Jun family, a spy in the foreign realm? The little divine demon ant was still skeptical. The dark aura on my body comes from this drop of blood. Jun Xiaoyaro did not shy away and directly took out the drop of Shongkang black blood. Ah, what is this scary thing? Put it back. The little divine demon ant seemed to be frightened and took a few steps back. Just now, it had casually used its ant sense to sense the surroundings, and it immediately fell into an endless dark nightmare. The drop of black blood was so terrifying that even the little divine demon ant felt dizzy. Jun Xiaoyaro put away the black blood of Shangtsang. To be honest, even he did not understand the secret behind this drop of black blood. Phew, that's scary. I believe you. The little divine demon ant wiped the sweat off its antennae. After learning that Jun Xiaoyaro was the son of God of the immortal realm's Jun clan, it completely relaxed and no longer had the hostility it had before. However, aren't you a little too good at deceiving those otherworldly creatures? The little divine demonic ant laughed loudly. It really admired Jun Xiaoyao. It's just a little trick. Jun Xiaoyao waved his hand. Right, I'm Little Yi. The little divine demon ant called Little Yi extended its hand. Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao also extended his hand. There was a moment of silence between the man and the ant. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Jun Xiaoyao's pinky was longer than Little Yi's entire body, so it was useless to shake his hand. Little Yi jumped directly onto Jun Xiaoyao's hand. It asked Jun Xiaoyao a little about the current era. Jun Xiaoyao also answered in full detail. Now, the little divine demon ant was completely relieved and believed in Jun Xiaoyao. Right, I should have something else here. Little Yi looked at the pond of laws. There's a myriad spirit blood herb. I took it. Jun Xiaoyao was very straightforward. How can you just take my things? Little Yi was a little displeased and crossed its arms in front of its chest. That was something left for it to grow quickly. I didn't take your things for free. A drop of chaos essence blood is worth a myriad spirit blood herb, right? Jun Xiaoyao was a little amused. It seemed that this ant was still a little stingy. If you think it's not enough, I can give you more. Jun Xiaoyao smiled. After all, the Chaos Lotus Constitution contained a lot of chaos essence blood, so he didn't mind giving it more. Why? Isn't this important to you too? Little Yi was a little hesitant. If I'm not wrong, your father should be the God-fiend emperor. As the descendant of a hero, I should protect you. Jun Xiaoyao smiled. This time, the little divine demon ant was a little embarrassed and blushed. It was a little stingy, but Jun Xiaoyao was so generous. Jun Xiaoyao glanced at it and said, "Of course, if you think you're taking advantage of me, I don't mind learning the God-fiend strength god art." Little Yi immediately raised its little head and said, "Good fellow, so you're eyeing my original god art. I won't take it for free. Other than the chaos essence blood, I can also give you the sacred body of the ancient's essence blood." Jun Xiaoyao's words made the little divine demon ant's breathing quicken. It was a divine demon ant that controlled power. If it was nourished by the sacred body of the ancient's essence blood, its future would be limitless. Little Yi thought about it and shook its head. No, the ancestor set a rule. This is a god art that can't be passed on to others. The original god art of their clan was too rare. It was the perfect interpretation of the law of force, so it couldn't be passed on to others. Jun Xiaoyao had expected this. He transmitted a small portion of the divine spirit immortality technique into the little divine demon ant's brain. What? What is this technique? The little divine demon ant jumped up immediately after experiencing it. Its face was full of eagerness. It was common knowledge that the divine demon ant clan not only had supreme power, they also had an extremely strong vitality. Otherwise, the divine demon emperor wouldn't have been able to defeat several immortal kings by himself. It also wouldn't have been able to last that long against a calamity-level immortal. If this technique was used, the little divine demon ant would really become an unkillable cockroach. What do you think? Is this enough sincerity? Jun Xiaoyao smiled. Although the divine demon immortality technique was rare, the divine demon immortality technique in the lifebook was no ordinary technique. Little Yi hesitated for a while and finally sighed. I have no choice. I have to make a decision that goes against the ancestors' wishes. Ancestors, please forgive Little Yi. Little Yi only wants to become stronger. Jun Xiaoyao was speechless as he looked at the little divine demon ant that was forcing itself to act. In the end, Jun Xiaoyao exchanged the divine demon immortality technique for the divine demon immortality technique. Little Yi took the initiative to show the rune bone in its body for Jun Xiaoyao to comprehend. I've already given you the thing. It's up to you how much you can comprehend, Little Yi said. To be honest, it didn't believe that Jun Xiaoyao could completely comprehend it. This kind of natural god power was the most difficult to comprehend. However, it didn't know what kind of cheat the person in front of it was. Putting aside his monstrous talent, he even had the God of War catalogue. It was simply too easy to comprehend all kinds of god powers and martial arts. After that, Jun Xiaoyao and Little Yi sat cross-legged in the pool of laws. They each comprehended the divine demon immortality technique and the divine demon immortality technique. Jun Xiaoyao didn't know that there was already a conspiracy shrouding him at this moment. On the other side of the desolate border, the four figures gathered together. Three of them were Blood Emperor, Prince Jimeng, and Zui. The other person was wearing blue clothes and had blue hair. It was Prince Nirvana. Strange, I lost contact with Li Jiui and the others. Could it be? Prince Nirvana frowned slightly. Why bother about them? How's the contact going? Blood Emperor asked. It should be fine, Prince Nirvana said. That's good. Let them know that the chaos body is heading to the great sacrificial blood ground. Isn't it convenient for them to kill the chaos body? Prince Jimeng said with a smile. Hihi, indeed. If we really do it, it'll be troublesome. After all, many old guys value the chaos body very much. Zui from the Hua fighting clan let out a strange laugh. If we succeed, a quasi-immortal level expert will owe us a favor. In the future, we will all have a chance to become titled battle gods. Blood Emperor also smiled eerily. Prince Nirvana narrowed his eyes slightly and looked into the distance. Yu Xiaoyao, this time, many seedlings from the immortal domain have joined forces to form an execution team. Can you escape this calamity? Chapter 988. In the blink of an eye, another month passed. During this month's time, desolate border became a stage of slaughter. The great armies of the two realms clashed several times, blood flowing like rivers, corpses piling up like mountains. At the same time, the younger generation of the two realms also carried out intense battles in desolate borders' various forbidden lands. On the contrary, it was the higher-level figures of the two realms who always confronted each other, not easily taking action. It was because the experts of both sides knew that the true ultimate great battle had yet to arrive. The Battle of Desolate Border this time was mainly to provide a stage for the younger generation of the two realms to perform. Meanwhile, during this type of slaughter, a forbidden land became the focal point of the two realms' heavenly talent struggle. That was precisely the great sacrifice blood ground. It was rumored that this forbidden land was left behind by a foreign undying darkness king. It had always been quiet before. However, coincidentally, during this recent period of time, the great sacrifice blood ground had strange movements. There was blood radiance that reached into the heavens, 10,000 creatures howling in grief. This drew the attention of the two realms. For the other side, this was related to the secret of an undying being. Meanwhile, for immortal domain, they definitely couldn't allow the other side to obtain any benefits from this. That was why the two realms' heavenly talents began to surround the great sacrifice blood ground, carrying out a slaughter. At this moment, in the void of a certain place in desolate border, a woman with exceptional beauty, appearance unmatched, temperament noble and cold was currently moving through the void, preparing to head towards the great sacrifice blood ground. It was precisely Ling Yang. She wore a snow-white-colored glass-long dress, setting off her delicate body, graceful and exceptional like an immortal flower. Meanwhile, the only difference from before was that Ling Yuan's snow-white long legs were covered with white stockings woven from the silk of the 10,000-year profound ice silkworm. One had to understand that Ling Yang's jade legs were bare before, never wearing stockings. Meanwhile, this type of change was something even Ling Yang herself didn't notice. During this period of time, as the Xianting's young emperor, Ling Yang also slaughtered her way into desolate border, making a name for herself. Once the heavenly emperor throne imprint appeared, it suppressed all directions. Even some of the slumbering emperor-level figures from the other side couldn't do anything to Ling Yang, to the extent where they were injured instead. From this, one could see that after Ling Yang experienced the baptism of immortal-level natural luck, her strength transformed extremely thoroughly. At this moment, a figure flashed over from the void. It was Jiyu Tiezi. Are you following me? Ling Yang frowned and said coldly. She had an instinctive dislike for Jiyu Tiezi. In the past, although Ling Yang also kept a distance from Jiyu Tiezi, he did not feel so disgusted with him. Ling Yang, I'm just worried that you'll shine too brightly and be targeted by the foreign hunters, Jiyu Tiezi said. The immortal region had the decapitation guard. There were hunters in the other side. It was all to hunt down the outstanding top prodigies of the enemy. With your current strength, you might not be able to compare to me. You should worry about your own battle achievements, Ling Yang said indifferently. Ling Yang, you really seem to have become a different person. Could it be that the consciousness of Fairy Kite has really affected you? Gu Tiezi looked deeply at Ling Yang. What do you mean? I've always been me. I've never been her person. Ling Yang raised her eyebrows. That's good. Ling Yang, don't forget who gave you the position of young emperor, Gu Tiezi said. Ling Yang's eyes were even colder. It was impossible for Gu Tiezi to force her to return the favor. Because at that time, Ling Yang didn't want Gu Tiezi to be humble. It was just that his own plan was ruined, and he didn't catch the fox and got himself into trouble. By the way, let me tell you another piece of news. There seems to be traces of that alien chaotic body in the sky burial forest. Some seed-level figures have already died in his hands. Ling Yang's eyes flashed when she heard Gu Tiezi's words. The alien chaotic body is too big a threat. We have to get rid of it, Ling Yang said. One of her goals in coming to the desolate border was to get rid of the alien chaotic body. Let's go together. The alien chaotic body is no pushover, Gu Tiezi said with a smile. Ling Yang ignored him and turned to leave. Gu Tiezi stepped forward and followed her. Ling Yang and Gu Tiezi weren't the only ones heading to the sky burial forest. Long Yarrow the Ascendant King, and other members of the Defiant Seven Emperors were also there. The Sacred Spirit Island's seed-level prodigy, the Prince of Bones, and the Nether King bloodline's seed-level figure, Yama, had also heard the news and were preparing to head there. The sky burial forest became the center of a storm other than the great blood sacrifice ground. Jun Xiaoyaro still didn't know that he was about to be surrounded. Or even if he did, he wouldn't react. A month was enough for Jun Xiaoyaro to comprehend the Godfiend strength superpower on a deeper level. The entire pool of laws that he was sitting on had already dried up. All the power had been absorbed by Jun Xiaoyaro and the little divine demon Antaya. This immortal god technique is so troublesome to cultivate. The little divine demon Ant grumbled. Although it said that its body was only the size of a little finger, and there were layers of light radiating from it. There seemed to be the sound of a god chanting. It was as if there were miniature gods sitting cross-legged in its body praying for blessings. To be able to comprehend to this level in a month, it was obvious how talented the little divine demon Ant was. It was definitely a monster. The little divine demon Ant glanced at Jun Xiaoyaro from the corner of its eyes and sighed when it noticed that Jun Xiaoyaro had opened his eyes as well. The little divine demon Ant jumped and landed on Jun Xiaoyao's shoulder. It pretended to be mature and said earnestly, "It's hard to understand, isn't it?" "I understand. After all, this is the natural superpower of our race. It's very difficult for other creatures to understand. Reincarnate as an ant in your next life. I'll be your big brother." The little divine demon Ant pretended to be arrogant, which was quite funny. "Sigh, it's really hard. It's been a month, and I still haven't understood the rule of strength." Jun Xiaoyaro shook his head slightly. "Yeah, I knew it." "Hey, what do you mean?" The little divine demon Ant couldn't wrap its head around it. Jun Xiaoyaro stood up and raised his hand. Boom. Terrifying chaotic chi filled the sky as if countless godfiend phantoms had appeared. Immortals carried mountains, godfiends moved mountains, and various scenes and runes of the extreme realm of strength appeared. Jun Xiaoyaro only patted lightly, and the vacuum in front of him shattered. It was even more powerful than Jun Xiaoyao's sacred body of the ancients. It was obvious how powerful the godfiend strength superpower was. How is this possible? The little divine demon Ant cried out. Its mind was about to be turned upside down. Even if it was born with this special ability, it had to learn it step by step. However, he had also comprehended it step by step, slowly comprehending it, and finally grasping it. Most importantly, the little divine demon Ant's control of the godfiend strength superpower was not as deep as Jun Xiaoyao's. That was ridiculous. "Are you my long-lost brother?" The little divine demon Ant yelled. If they were not of the same race, how could he learn this special ability so quickly? "You're thinking too much." Jun Xiaoyaro was speechless. Big brother, teach me. The little divine demon ant knelt before Jun Xiaoyao. It worshipped him so much that it even called him Big Brother. However, that was exactly what Jun Xiaoyao had expected. The little divine demon ant had endless potential. It would definitely be a great overlord in the world in the future. He had to get it on the same side. Of course, I can teach you. However, it seems that we have guests. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes darkened as he sensed some dense auras approaching the sky burial forest. He had just learned the Godfiend strength superpower, and someone had already sent themselves to him as a punching bag. That was too considerate. Chapter 989. Guests. The little divine devil ant was confused, and then its antennae trembled. He also sensed some auras. They were cultivators from the immortal region. What do you plan to do next? If you plan to return to the immortal realms, you must not reveal my identity, Jun Xiaoyao said. The little divine demon ant hesitated. After sleeping for so long, it indeed wanted to return to the immortal region. However, the thought of Jun Xiaoyao's monstrous talent and the fact that he could help it comprehend the Godfiend great strength divine ability made it even more excited. The little divine demon ant was in a dilemma. This was clearly a big shot, and a thick thigh at that. Furthermore, he was the son of God of the Jun family. If he clung onto this thigh, no matter what calamity he faced in the future, there would be hope for him to survive. Moreover, there were almost no traces of demonic ants in the immortal region now. Even if Little Yi returned to the immortal region, he wouldn't be able to find his companions. It hesitated for a moment before saying, "Can I follow you?" "Oh." Jun Xiaoyao glanced at the little divine demon ant. To be honest, he was not surprised. Or rather, it was all part of his plan. "But I have to return to the other side afterwards," Jun Xiaoyao said. "Then that's perfect, I'm also heading to the other side. This is precisely the so-called know yourself and know your enemy, and then you will emerge victorious in 100 battles. If you want to win against the enemy, you have to understand the enemy first." The little divine demon ant clenched his fist. His father died under the hands of foreign experts. His brothers and sisters had also died or gone missing in the battle with the foreign prodigies. It could be said that the entire family perished because of the other side. This kind of hatred was engraved into his bones and blood. The little divine demonic ant also wanted to go to the alien realm. It wanted to know more about the enemy's background and methods. "All right, you can follow me. You can pretend to be my captive and battle servant, but I'll have to trouble you a little," Jun Xiaoyao said. "It's fine. This little grievance is nothing." Little Yi was very unyielding. After that, Little Yi climbed onto Jun Xiaoyao's shoulder. Jun Xiaoyao took out a ghost mask and slowly put it on his face. He directly flew out of the purple gold ancient city. "Wait." The little divine demon ant said as it formed a secret seal with its hands. In an instant, the entire ancient city covered by the divine mark purple gold shrank rapidly. In the end, it turned into a mini ancient city that was taken by the divine fiend ant. This was also a treasure. Jun Xiaoyao strolled leisurely through the air from the core of the sky burial forest. In the distance, the sound of wind breaking could be heard. These were the geniuses of the immortal realms, all of their auras extraordinary. Found it. Exotic chaotic body. Upon seeing Jun Xiaoyao appear, the gazes of those geniuses from the immortal realms all locked onto him. However, after sensing Jun Xiaoyao's aura, the expressions of those immortal domain geniuses changed slightly. Jun Xiaoyao did not deliberately release his aura. However, the surrounding wisps of primal chaos chi caused the void to faintly crack. Kill. There was no nonsense or hesitation. Over 100 geniuses from the immortal realm made their moves at the same time. All sorts of ultimate moves, divine powers, and top-tier forbidden techniques were unleashed, turning into a destructive torrent that swept towards Jun Xiaoyao. It could be said that even a young paragon would be extremely cautious in the face of such a torrent of dharmic powers. Seeing this, Jun Xiaoyao's expression under the mask was calm. He had no intention of killing these immortal domain cultivators, so he only used defensive techniques. Layers of divine rings appeared around Jun Xiaoyao's body. Every time a divine ring appeared, It seemed to confine all dharmic powers, and nothing could touch it. If the deceased Prince Mo Jie were here, he would definitely vomit blood from anger. This was the innate divine ability of the Mo Jie family, which allowed him to be immune to divine rings. But now, Jun Xiaoyaro had learned it. The God of War catalogue had the ability to deconstruct and deduce other divine abilities. Moreover, Jun Xiaoyaro also had the ability to be immune to dharmic powers. However, at that time, Jun Xiaoyaro did not know how to use it, so he could only activate this power. Now, Jun Xiaoyaro could also materialize the ability to be immune to divine rings. A total of 15 layers of dharmic powers immunity divine rings enveloped Jun Xiaoyao's body. In contrast, Jun Xiaoyaro was like the immovable wisdom king who was invulnerable to all dharmic powers. This was 5 more layers than Prince Mo Jie's previous 10 layers of divine rings. The resplendent dharmic powers surged towards Jun Xiaoyao, but they were weakened by the layers of immunity divine rings. In the end, the dharmic powers were exhausted before they could even break through the defenses of the 15 divine rings. How is this possible? The prodigies of the 8 directions immortal domain were extremely shocked. It's the Mo Jie family's dharmic powers immunity divine ring. A prodigy with more experience couldn't help but exclaim. Which emperor clan does the alien chaotic body belong to? Many prodigies of the immortal domain were confused. Jun Xiaoyaro put his hands behind his back and continued to walk forward. He had no intention of attacking these immortal domain cultivators. After all, he was also a member of the immortal domain. He wouldn't slaughter them for no reason. Of course, if he encountered people from hostile forces, Jun Xiaoyao obviously wouldn't be so merciful. Attack! Seeing this, the group of prodigies charged forward again. Enough! Jun Xiaoyao took a step forward. A rumbling sound rang out, as if a divine king had stepped into the sky. Chaotic ripples spread out, shaking the surrounding prodigies. They all spat out mouthfuls of blood and were injured. Jun Xiaoyaro had held back a trick or two. Otherwise, these hundreds of immortal domain prodigies would have been instantly turned into minced meat. And at this moment, Dragon Chi suddenly filled the air in the distance, and a beautiful figure with a monstrous purple aura came over. Her long purple hair fluttered in the wind like silk. She was wearing a snow-white dress that fluttered in the wind. She had a gorgeous face, proud purple-gold phoenix eyes, and snow-white long legs. Who else could it be but Long Yarrow? The Overlord is here. Seeing Long Yarrow's arrival, the atmosphere of the immortal domain prodigies instantly became lively. Long Yarrow had also undergone the immortal creation baptism. Now, her cultivation was at the quasi-supreme realm. In addition, she had the heavenly tyrant body and the ancient void dragon clan's golden ancient dragon bloodline. Long Yarrow's strength was comparable to a supreme being. In addition, she had also cultivated the life book, so she had a strong recovery ability. Therefore, during this period of time, Long Yarrow had made a name for herself in the desolate border. The might of the tyrant body resounded throughout the desolate border. Of course, many people thought that it was because the sacred body wasn't here. If the sacred body was here, the tyrant body wouldn't be a problem. You are the alien chaotic body. Long Yarrow looked at Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao was wearing a ghost mask, and his white clothes were floating in the chaotic energy. She would never have thought that the person standing opposite her. It was Jun Xiaoyao who had brought her endless nightmares. I want to use the alien chaotic body to prove my heavenly tyrant body's name. Long Yarrow shouted and rushed towards Jun Xiaoyao. Previously, she had suffered a crushing defeat in the battle of the sacred body, and even the heavenly tyrant body's name was tarnished. Now, she wanted to suppress the alien chaotic body and restore the heavenly tyrant body's name. Looking at Long Yarrow who was rushing towards him, Jun Xiaoyao slowly shook his head. Was she addicted to being weak? She was really weak and playful. Jun Xiaoyao wouldn't show any mercy to Long Yarrow. He had said it before. If Long Yarrow dared to provoke him again, he wouldn't mind letting her have a taste of what it was like to be a bitch. He just happened to need a sandbag to test the power of the Fiend God Great Strength Super Technique. Jun Xiaoyao raised his hand, and various fiend god phantoms and runes of the extreme realm of strength appeared. The chaotic energy rushed into the sky, and the surging and vast power shattered the sky of the desolate border. This is. Even Long Yarrow was shocked. What kind of power was this? That power was even more powerful than the power of her dragon clan. Boom! Jun Xiaoyaro slapped out with his palm, and it was as if the ancient sky had been overturned. Long Yarrow hurriedly activated the ancient golden dragon and the heavenly tyrant body's bloodline. Purple blood rushed into the sky, and the dragon chi shook the sky. A tyrant fist was thrown out, and it shattered the void. Bang! After a huge collision, Long Yarrow spat out purple blood and was sent flying. The ancient golden dragon bloodline and the heavenly tyrant body couldn't deal with the chaotic body and the fiend god great strength super technique. Jun Xiaoyaro raised his hand, and his 5 fingers grabbed the void. The chaotic energy formed a chaotic chain, and directly lashed at Long Yarrow's delicate body. Ah! A painful cry was heard, and a whip mark appeared on Long Yarrow's snow-white body. Hearing the cry, Jun Xiaoyao's eyes suddenly had a strange look under the mask. Although this sound was a painful groan, there seemed to be a hint of enjoyment mixed within. Long Yarrow was addicted to being tortured by him. Chapter 990. Jun Xiaoyao's expression was very strange. He didn't expect Long Yarrow to be such a powerful and domineering ancient void dragon empress. He had actually taught her to be such a masochist. In other words, Jun Xiaoyaro was the only one who was capable of taming the little female dragon. Long Yarrow also noticed her reaction. She bit her red lips, and a trace of embarrassment and anger appeared on her snow-white, jade-like face. It was all Jun Xiaoyao's fault. Jun Xiaoyaro had abused her time and time again, causing her to awaken some strange attributes. Of course, she didn't know that the chaotic physique opposite her was Jun Xiaoyaro. Jun Xiaoyaro continued to attack, suppressing her with the Godfiend strength technique and lashing out with the chaotic chains. Long Yarrow had the dual bloodlines of the ancient golden dragon and the heavenly tyrant body. Even so, he was still unable to fight back against the current Jun Xiaoyaro, unable to do so at all. Wounds appeared on her delicate body. Jun Xiaoyaro used the chaotic giant palm to enhance his Godfiend strength technique and struck out with his palm. Long Yarrow only felt as if the palm of a god king was crushing down, and even the universe was suppressed. The great Tao rumbled. The chaotic physique was born to suppress the great Tao, and even the divine chains of laws were shattered inch by inch. This was a certain extreme manifestation of power. Long Yarrow spat out blood, and the power in her body was exhausted and suppressed to the extreme. In the end, Long Yarrow was slammed to the ground by Jun Xiaoyaro, creating a deep pit. What was even more shocking was that Long Yarrow's delicate body surged with purple light and quickly shrank. In the blink of an eye, she had turned back into a little girl. This shocked the group of immortal region prodigies to the extreme. How could this be? How could this be? Long Yarrow herself was dumbfounded. She had been beaten back to her original form. Her long legs were gone, and her chest had shrunk. She had turned back into the fierce little female dragon. Long Yarrow couldn't accept it and screamed. What she couldn't accept the most was that even her voice had turned back into a baby's. This made Long Yarrow's mentality collapse. It was simply reverse growth, and she had returned to before liberation. Whoosh! The primal chaos chain broke through the void and swept through the air, directly wrapping around Long Yarrow's slender neck. Get down! Jun Xiaoyao's magnetic and hoarse voice sounded. Long Yarrow's entire body was sprawled on the ground. A classic scene played out once again. That was how she had been humiliated in the battle between the sacred body and the overlord body. Now, he was defeated by the chaos body. The invincible overlord had fallen again. Long Yarrow really wanted to cry. The successive defeats had caused her Tao heart to lose balance. Coincidentally, a very tender voice sounded again. Is the dragon race so lame now? Long Yarrow looked over and fainted again. It was a purple gold little ant. It was on Jun Xiaoyao's shoulder, mocking her. Even an ant was mocking her. No, that looks like a divine demon ant. Some of the geniuses from the immortal realms took a closer look and exclaimed in shock. The demonic god Ant was one of the ancient ferocious beasts of the immortal region. Why was it on the alien chaotic body's shoulder? The divine demon Ant is already under my control, Jun Xiaoyaro said casually and pulled the primal chaos chain. Long Yarrow-er's petite body was crawling on the ground like a little bitch. She no longer had the majesty of the ancient void dragon race's empress. She once again felt an extreme sense of shame. However, there was also an intoxicating sense of depravity amidst this shame. If not for the fact that the person in front of her had the alien chaotic body, Long Yarrow-er really would have thought that Jun Xiaoyaro had returned. At this moment, several powerful auras appeared in the distance again. Stop! A handsome man with flowing silver hair wearing a large white crane cape appeared. It was the Ascension King. Seeing the Ascension King, Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were cold with a hint of complexity. He did not hate the Ascension King's betrayal. This was because he had already expected it. He was just a little disappointed. The Ascension King looked at Jun Xiaoyaro and was momentarily dazed. However, he quickly recovered. Although he was a little similar to the figure in his memory. However, the chaotic body alone was enough to cut off all unfounded guesses. On the other side of the sky, a pale-skinned young master appeared. The white-bone young master of the Holy Spirit Island is here. Seeing his appearance, many immortal domain skyprides were even more excited. This was not the current generation's supreme outlawed skyprides. Instead, he was a true seedling of the Holy Spirit Island. The Holy Spirit Island's holy spirits were formed from various Tao metals, stone embryos, origin stones, and nourished by the world's essence. Meanwhile, this white-bone young master was rumored to be a top-notch genius born from a Holy Spirit source that had fused with the remains of a prodigy skypride. That was why he was called the white-bone young master. At this moment, the white-bone young master's sinister eyes were looking at Jun Xiaoyaro. His expression was solemn and carried a sense of aggression. If I can be nourished by the chaos blood essence, I'll undergo a qualitative transformation. The white-bone young master was very excited. He was the origin of the Saint Spirit, and if he was infused with the primal chaos blood essence, he would definitely become a monarch. Therefore, to him, killing the chaos physique was not only a matter of honor, but also a matter of his transformation. Sensing the white-bone young master's gaze, Jun Xiaoyaro sneered. He did not have a good impression of the Holy Spirit Island. Previously, he had killed the Holy Spirit Island's young skypride, Mo Jinyu. Hehe, this place is really lively. On the other side of the sky, billowing demonic chi surged and shrouded the sky, turning it into a pitch-black night. A black-clothed man revealed himself. His black hair hung down to his ankles. His eyes were pitch-black like black holes, without any white in them. He was the Holy Yama of the Hades bloodline. This was a seedling of the Hades bloodline. He was extremely powerful. Today, I'll kill the chaos physique. The Holy Yama's tone was a little arrogant, but he did have the right to be arrogant. He possessed the unique Yama King body, and during his time, he was invincible and invincible. Jun Xiaoyaro glanced at the Holy Yama. Naturally, Jun Xiaoyaro would not show mercy to those from the Hades bloodline. The Hades bloodline had also interfered in the immortal war of the Jun family. He only had the intention to kill this bloodline. Who else is there? Come out. Jun Xiaoyaro looked into the distance with a deep gaze. Several figures appeared again. They were Ling Yang and Jiyu Tiezi. There were also several descendants of other celestial lineages, Kang Li, Yarrow Qing, and Xing Lu. The people of the Xian Ting bloodline had arrived. Ling Yang saw Jun Xiaoyaro for the first time, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Even his breathing stopped for a moment. Although that figure was wearing a ghost mask and surrounded by chaos, there was a sense of déjà vu. It was as if it was him. However, logic told Ling Yang that it was impossible. The chaotic body alone was enough to deny everything. No matter how good Jun Xiaoyaro was, it was impossible for him to change from the sacred body of the ancients to the chaotic body. Moreover, the crown had fallen from the sky. It was destined that the sky had won the game against the sky. Jun Xiaoyaro had fallen. Ling Yang came back to her senses after a moment of absent-mindedness. No, it's not him. It can't be him. Ling Yang thought to herself. However, she felt an inexplicable pain in the hollow part of her heart. At this moment, the entire Sky Burial Forest was filled with a murderous aura. The Xianting bloodline, the Hades bloodline, the Ascendant King, the Prince of Bones, and the others. So many talented geniuses were going to besiege the chaotic body. This was definitely going to be a great battle. Chapter 991. The Alien Chaotic Physique, the titled God of War, one of the 6 apocalyptic kings. Each of these identities was as heavy as a mountain, bringing great pressure to the immortal domain Sky Prides. In the past, there was a young foreign god of war who killed 10 seed-level Sky Prides in a row, shocking the world. Now, 2 seed-level Sky Prides had appeared, along with many other outlawed Sky Prides. The surrounding immortal domain Sky Prides were very nervous, guessing whether they could successfully encircle and kill the chaotic physique. Boom! The Lord of Bones immediately attacked without any superfluous words. He wanted to obtain the chaotic blood essence to irrigate his body and achieve the sublimation of his life level. The Lord of Bones reached out and grabbed. Light surged, and the power of laws turned into a giant white bone hand, grabbing at Jun Xiaoyao. The seed-level Sky Prides were basically at the honorable level, and they were extremely proficient in using the power of laws. The giant white bone hand was branded with runes and various divine chains of order. It rushed out with the giant white bone hand, trying to grab Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao raised his hand, and a giant chaotic hand seal appeared. Endless chaotic chi surged and compressed. Boom! There was a huge collision between heaven and earth, and the giant white bone hand was directly shattered. Chaotic chi overflowed, and every wisp could crush a mountain range. Forests and mountains collapsed, and cracks appeared on the ground. Thud, thud, thud. The Lord of Bones retreated hundreds of steps in the void, and every step he took caused the void to collapse. As expected of the chaotic physique, the Lord of Bones' expression became much more solemn. His body was the source of the Saint Spirit, and it was extremely sturdy. It was not weaker than many supreme treasure bodies. However, in the collision just now, there was a cracking sound coming from his body. Attack together, don't worry about anything, the Holy Yama said in a hoarse voice. Generally speaking, these seed-level Sky Prides and outlawed Sky Prides were arrogant, and they wanted to kill the foreign Sky Prides alone instead of attacking together. However, the chaotic physique was somewhat special to them, and he was a formidable opponent. If they could directly encircle him, there was no need to fight alone. Those empty titles were not important at all. It was fine as long as they could kill the chaotic physique. The Holy Yama also attacked, and he raised his hand to unleash the holy demonic heavenly fire. It was as if a dark flame surged from hell, and engulfed the world. As long as one came into contact with the infernal heavenly flame, they would not be able to extinguish it. Jun Xiaoyao, on the other hand, activated his magical power immunity ability, and 15 layers of magical power immunity halos appeared around him. In contrast, Jun Xiaoyao was as noble and inviolable as a god. The Morgia clan's methods. Seeing that the holy devil heavenly flame was unable to break through the immunity divine ring, the Holy Yama frowned. He could be considered to have some understanding of the other side. This chaos body was definitely not from the Morgia clan. However, he had the means of the Morgia clan. He had to admit that it was indeed very strange. Kill. Jiu Tiezi and the others also made their move. He formed a hand seal, and a Jun hexagram appeared in the void. Suddenly, wind and thunder appeared in the sky. Countless bolts of lightning appeared and intertwined with each other, turning into chains of lightning that interweaved in the void. In the end, it transformed into a lightning prison, trapping Jun Xiaoyao within. This move was the Jun hexagram, lightning cage. It had to be said that Jiu Tiezi had a deep understanding of his own Fushi holy body. He could control the 8 supreme elemental powers in the world at will. As for Jun Xiaoyao, his expression was calm under the ghost mask. He took a step forward, and the chaotic energy around him surged like a tide, charging towards the lightning cage. The entire cage was torn apart. He was like the god of chaos, destroying the cage and directly punching at Gu Tiezi. To Jun Xiaoyaro, Gu Tiezi was even more disgusting than the creatures of the other side. But from another perspective, if it weren't for Gu Tiezi, his series of arrangements in the ruins of God wouldn't have been realized. So to a certain extent, Gu Tiezi was like a tool, working for Jun Xiaoyaro. But Jun Xiaoyaro obviously wouldn't forgive Gu Tiezi because of this. He punched out, and the world shook. An illusory image appeared in the sky. An ant looked up at the vast sky. It punched at the sky once, 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 100,000 times, 1,000,000 times, 10,000,000 times, 1,000,000,000 times. After countless years, the little ant was able to split the vast sky in half with a single punch. Stars fell like a rain of fire, the world was split, the universe was overturned, and the universe was split open. This was a forbidden technique in the Godfiend strength theurgy. Heaven-splitting fist. This was a peerless forbidden technique that the ancestor of the Godfiend ants had comprehended back then. It was fused into the Godfiend strength theurgy, engraved in the bloodline, and passed down to future generations. Once this fist was unleashed, the world collapsed and the universe was split in half. It was as if a Godfiend was splitting the sky. The scene was extremely terrifying. The little divine demon ant standing on Jun Xiaoyao's shoulder was stunned. It was extremely shocked and its body was numb from excitement. Even it couldn't unleash the power of the heaven-splitting fist for the time being. Jun Xiaoyaro was a monster. This made the little divine demon ant even more determined to follow Jun Xiaoyaro. The power of this fist could even surpass the incomplete 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Of course, it would be a different story if it was the complete 6 paths of reincarnation fist. After all, the Godfiend strength theurgy could also be fused into the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Boom! This fist cracked the universe and shattered the world. Seeing this, Gu Tiezi's expression changed and he hurriedly used a defensive move. Gen hexagram, 1,000 mountains. In front of Gu Tiezi, dharmic powers surged and turned into layers of mountains as sturdy as the immemorial divine mountains. However, under this punch, even the sky could be split open, let alone collapse a mountain. The mountains shattered. Gu Tiezi took out the Fushi Immortal System's quasi-immortal artifact, the Fushi Dragon Steely, and blocked in front of him. But it still couldn't stop it. Poof! Gu Tiezi spat out blood and was knocked back. The chaotic body combined with the strongest Godfiend strength theurgy, the heaven-splitting fist. Even the Fushi sacred body couldn't withstand it. His bones cracked and his organs churned. Blood kept flowing out of his mouth. Gu Tiezi's face was pale and he clenched his teeth. This was the second time he felt so powerless. The last time was in the world of divine ruins. Even the 7 emperors couldn't do anything to that invincible white-robed figure. And now, this feeling came again. If it wasn't for the otherworld chaotic body, Gu Tiezi would have thought that Jun Xiaoyaro had returned to the world. Kill. Yaro Qing, Kang Li, Xing Lu, and the others attacked. They were the successors of the Zhongjie Immortal System, the Shennong Immortal System, and the Xingtian Immortal System. Although they weren't seedlings of their respective immortal systems, they had been baptized by the immortal creation. Their cultivation was now at the quasi-supreme level. Facing them, Jun Xiaoyaro didn't show them any mercy. In other words, he didn't have a good impression of the entire Supreme Xian Ting. Jun Xiaoyao's fists swept out, severely injuring all 3 of them with a single punch, causing their bodies to crack. On the other side, Ling Yang was slightly dazed. Because that figure was a little familiar. It was the same unbeatable aura that she had seen before. It was as if no one in the world could make him take a step back. No one was qualified to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Ling Yang, what are you waiting for? Use the seal of the Heaven Emperor's throne to suppress him, Gu Tiezi yelled. Ling Yang collected her thoughts. Her eyes flickered with a blank look. However, she still made her move. A peerless throne emitting an immortal glow appeared in the rift. It carried with it a supreme power that could suppress the universe and all living things in the universe. The peerless immortal weapon of the Xian Ting that once suppressed the 9 heavens immortal realm, the seal of the Heaven Emperor's throne had appeared. Chapter 992. The Heaven Emperor Throne was an important artifact used by the Xian Ting to suppress the Nine Heavens immortal realm. It was even stronger than other immortal artifacts. It was most likely on the same level as the strongest immortal artifact, the Immortal Execution Sword. Even though Ling Yang did not summon the real Heaven Emperor Throne, it was still powerful enough. However, even if it was merely a strand of imprint, it was still powerful enough to emit an unparalleled amount of energy and pressure. Zhang Xiaoyaro could sense that the aura was even stronger than the immortal artifact that Ji Qingyi had summoned before. Zhang Xiaoyaro looked at Ling Yang. He noticed that Ling Yang was wearing white stockings on her slender legs. It was not because Zhang Xiaoyaro was a pervert. Every man was fond of beautiful legs in stockings. However, Zhang Xiaoyaro was more concerned about the heavenly maiden Yuan's habit of wearing white stockings. He recalled the time when the heavenly maiden Yuan burned her flesh to return her soul and merged with Ling Yang. Could it be? Zhang Xiaoyaro had a guess. Ling Yang might have perfectly merged with the heavenly maiden Yuan's soul. Suppress. Ling Yang suppressed Qin Nan with the Heaven Emperor Throne. Wisps of immortal qi and monarch aura surged. Anyone, even a Nine Heavens Supreme, would vomit blood and have their flesh crumble under the pressure of the Heaven Emperor Throne. However, Zhang Xiaoyaro did not react that way. It was only because of the thoughts in his mind that he was slightly absent-minded. That was the first time Zhang Xiaoyaro was forced to take a step back. A great force surged forward, causing Zhang Xiaoyao's flesh to buzz like a bell. That being said, Zhang Xiaoyao's flesh was reforged by the Azure Monarch using the Chaos Green Lotus. It was on par with the real Chaos flesh. As such, Zhang Xiaoyao only felt a heavy pressure on him, but he was not hurt in any way. It really works. The other Sky Prides who saw this scene were all excited. They mistakenly thought that Ling Yuan could really suppress the chaotic body with the celestial the Archthrone. Little did they know, Zhang Xiaoyaro was only distracted by his thoughts. Ling Yang was startled too. She saw how Zhang Xiaoyaro dealt with others with a single punch like an invincible god of war. However, he was stunned for a moment when facing her before he was knocked back. Could it be? No, impossible. Ling Yang shook her head. It was too ridiculous. It was completely unrealistic. If others knew what she was thinking, they would definitely think she was crazy. How could Zhang Xiaoyaro have anything to do with the body of chaos? Dispelling the distracting thoughts in her mind, Ling Yuan continued to attack, using the mark of the Celestial Emperor's throne to subdue Zhang Xiaoyaro. Facing Ling Yang's attack, Zhang Xiaoyaro frowned slightly under the mask. If it was the previous Ling Yang, Zhang Xiaoyaro would not have held back. The Xian Ting young emperor and the son of god of the Zhang family were natural enemies. But now, Ling Yang was no longer just Ling Yang. She was still Fairy Yuan. Zhang Xiaoyaro felt sorry for what he had done to Goddess Yuan. He had previously promised to take care of Fairy Maiden Yuan. In the end, Fairy Yuan burned her body and returned her soul for him. Zhang Xiaoyaro could not hurt Ling Yang even if it was for Fairy Yuan. Because of this, Zhang Xiaoyaro only used defensive methods. 15 layers of immunity rings appeared around him. But even so, it was difficult to be immune to the power of the Heaven Emperor Throne. Ling Yang saw this, but there was a trace of doubt in her beautiful eyes. The other prodigies, such as the young Master of Bones, all revealed a sneer. They all thought that most of Zhang Xiaoyao's power had been suppressed by the Heaven Emperor Throne. He was unable to unleash his full strength. A good opportunity. Seeing this, the young Master of Bones attacked again. A white bone sword suddenly appeared on his back. The body of the sword was like a human spine, with runes imprinted on it, emitting a sharp aura. This was a divine weapon that the young Master of Bones had refined with the spine of the monstrous prodigy that he had fused with. The bone sword pierced towards Zhang Xiaoyaro, and tens of thousands of bone sword qi appeared around him. On the other side, Yama also made his move. He wanted to seize this good opportunity. He raised his arm, and a malevolent metal glove that looked like an evil spirit appeared on his hand. This was the quasi-immortal artifact of the Netherworld King bloodline, the imprint of the Hand of Yama. There were even rumors that the quasi-immortal artifact, the Hand of Yama, was a part of the 10 Kings of Hell. The underworld was once known as the Xian Ting of the darkness. The Xian Ting had the Heaven Emperor throne, and the underworld naturally had its own immortal artifact. It was called the 10 Kings of Hell. It was rumored that this immortal artifact was a supreme immortal artifact formed by the combination of 10 quasi-immortal artifacts. The Hand of Yama of the Netherworld King bloodline was one of the 10 quasi-immortal artifacts that formed the 10 Kings of Hell. At this moment, Yama took out the quasi-immortal artifact imprint, and endless holy devil heavenly fire appeared. The source of power of the Hand of Yama was the endless sea of hellfire, so its power was surging and endless. It was definitely not inferior to the Red Lotus hellfire that burned Karma. Yama's punishment, Dark World Heavenly Fire. Yama used his ultimate move, and used the Hand of Yama to activate a destructive great ability. An endless sea of hellfire appeared. In the sea of hellfire, a huge hand of hellfire appeared. It was as if the King of Hell had reached out his hand to grab the lives of all living beings. On the other side, Ascension King also made his move. He took out the Ascension Jin dynasty's imperial weapon, the Ascension Divine Spear imprint. The shadow of a divine spear appeared, and with a rain of light, it was thrown toward Jun Xiaoyao. Gu Tiezi also made his move. He used the quasi-immortal artifact, the Fushi Dragon Tablet imprint, to suppress it. The shadow of a stone tablet taller than a primordial mountain appeared. It was engraved with the 8 trigram stupa and dragon patterns, and when it came down, the void collapsed. Kang Li, Yaro Qing, Xing Lu, and the others also used all of their skills to attack. There were 2 seed-level Sky Prides, and several outlawed Sky Prides of the current generation. There were also various immortal artifacts, quasi-immortal artifacts, and imperial weapon imprints. It could be said that even a true honorable would be severely injured and killed under such a siege. Under the mask, Jun Xiaoyao's expression was indifferent, and he ignored all of this. Do you really think a heavenly emperor's throne imprint is enough to make me helpless? Jun Xiaoyao sneered. He could show mercy to Ling Yang. However, it did not mean that others had the right to challenge him. Do you want me to help you? On his shoulder, the little divine demon ant transmitted its voice. Not yet, Jun Xiaoyao whispered. With a flip of his hand, a sword ray surged in his left hand, and its light illuminated the sky for 100,000 miles. The Deluo sword embryo appeared. In his right hand, demonic might was vast. He held the dark golden god's weep halberd in his hand. Blood veins appeared on the halberd like blood vessels, and pierced into Jun Xiaoyao's arm. In an instant, his black hair turned into 3,000 white hairs. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyao, whose white hair and white robes fluttered, held the Deluo sword embryo in his left hand and the god's weep halberd in his right. He activated the honorable divine blood in his body again, and his blood boiled like lava. The surface of Jun Xiaoyao's body was instantly enveloped in bright divine flames. The 4th supreme technique, Boost. All of his attributes were increased by several times. Behind Jun Xiaoyao, there was also a chaotic tide surging. In the confusion, it was as if an ancient demon god was holding up heaven and earth. The scene was terrifying to the extreme. Chaos body phenomenon, chaos heaven splitting. Jun Xiaoyao used the Deluo sword embryo in his left hand to execute the heaven-slashing art. A 100,000-foot-long golden sword ray appeared, illuminating the sky as sword chi spread for 30,000 miles. Jun Xiaoyao used his godfiend great strength divine ability to boost the power of the god's weep halberd. When the halberd was swung, its power was increased by several times. It was so powerful that it could destroy the heavens with a single halberd. The heaven-slashing art, the godfiend great strength divine ability, the chaos heaven-splitting phenomenon, and the 4th supreme technique that increased its power by several times. In addition to the Deluo sword embryo and the god's weep halberd. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyao was simply like an invincible god of war. His combat strength was at its peak, and he was going all out. Its power was vast and boundless. The desolate border trembled, and the stars trembled.